How's everybody doing today? Guess who's back? We're not going to sing any Eminem. He's a spawn of Satan. Sorry, guys. I don't know who's even going to be here. I guess we'll see. Let me get set up here the normal way that I usually would before. Okay. Fudge. That I usually would before. Okay. Alright, I think we're about set up. See, the sound's doing good. I got 6 watching. Good morning. Hey, what's up, Cynthia? I know, it's been a while, guys. It has been a while. And I'm going to explain to that before I even start why this happened and the whole situation. So, for about 4 months, I had no internet, so I couldn't stream. Got that taken care of. Finally got back to work, and then I broke my leg at my work. So, I'm currently off work on workers' comp for about another week, and then I go back to work. But I actually took time off too because I wanted to just step back for a while. Take a break, because my brain was getting fried with everything. And I wanted to actually take a break and watch and see. And now stuff is just exploding. Boom, boom, boom everywhere. I mean, we've seen the hearings, you know, with Peter Strzok and, you know, that. And it's just crazy just watching Peter Strzok's hearings. You would think that he's still on the black hats, but no, he's working for the white hats. You could tell. If you knew what to look for, you could tell that he's working for the white hats. And his infamous Coke bottle incident, that the Washington Post cameraman acted real fishy with that one, but we'll get into that later. But let's look at some current stats, shall we? So, go right now. We got True Pundit here, and this is something I saw today, and I was like, wow. Implode. FBI agent overseeing election meddling task force abruptly quits, walks out days after Mueller's sham indictments. So days after Mueller did them indictments of the 12 Russians supposedly, he's gone. He's like, I'm out. He's like, I'm done. Well, of course, he knows it's a sinking ship. And when you sit there and bluntly bring up fake reports, I mean, bottom line is, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. And that's exactly what they did. They're digging themselves a bigger hole. So, sideways, that is how the FBI is now running as folks head for the hills and greener career pastures amid the chaos. Senior FBI official Jeffrey, and if I butcher the name, I apologize, Tricoli, has left his position overseeing a government task force that's been looking into Russian interference in U.S. elections, according to the Wall Street Journal. Tricoli, who had been at the FBI for 18 years, so he started in about 2000, reportedly left last month to take a job with Charles Schwab Corp. Why would you leave the FBI to go with Charles Schwab? Interesting. His departure raises questions about how the government plans to address the issue of election meddling, particularly with the midterm elections less than 4 months away. Now, we already know Trump has admitted there was some, and he's been saying that the Russians were probably involved, but he also said we get hacked by the Chinese, and we even get hacked by our own people. So, I mean, bottom line. So Trump's not denying that fact, but they might have meddled, but in no way did it affect the vote count that how Trump got in. It didn't affect that at it all. So that's all we should be worried about. It's a witch hunt and has been since day one. But before that time, when Obama was in there, when he thought Hillary was still going to win, he was told about the Russian meddling. And he said, don't worry about it. But as soon as Trump gets in, bam, let's hit him with everything we got. So Shkreli did not respond to requests for a comment by the Journal. News of his exit comes just days after Special Counsel Robert Mueller indicted 12 Russian intelligence officers for allegedly conspiring to influence the 2016 presidential election by hacking U.S. systems. Gotta love it, huh? Here's another one. And we both know from what Q has told us that these two have turned and they gave everything up. Because bottom line, Peter Strzok's hearing that we saw, that was just for optical needs. That was just for our view. But you gotta love it that the Democrats couldn't stop anything. You gotta saw them. They were like, what the? And whenever there was a time that I caught in the hearing that one of the Democrats tried to stop it, and you saw Strzok like shake roll in and have this little smile on his face. People are going to say and think, well, he's doing that because he wants to. No. Every time them Democrats chimed in and tried to stop that was just showing how corrupt and guilty they are of the treasonous acts that they have done. That's what was great. More people are waking up, folks. The hashtag walk away is everywhere. I'm telling you, people are waking up in masses. You know why? Because they're now seeing the truth right in front of their eyes for the first time, and it's blowing their mind. So Lisa Page tosses FBI sweetheart Peter Strzok's, however you pronounce it, under the bus, tells Congress their text messages meant exactly what they said. Now, if both these guys here are already working for the White Hats because they wanted a better deal, then you know whatever she says don't matter. Because, but I'm just saying this is what Q said. And then a lot of people are doubting Q, but you got to look at it this way. Of course, they're going to push that agenda towards us. And there's people even like Potter Expositor that's now, like, he's done away with Q pretty much. He don't even care about Q. He says he thinks it's a call. And I'm not sitting here putting my heart into Q anymore. But I still am going to pay attention to the things he says and take them with some thinking. So, Representative John Redcliffe reveals Lisa Page admitted her text message with Peter Strzok meant exactly what they say, contrary to Strzok's testimony. And I want us to also say a prayer for the family of the Secret Service agent that was, and I'm gonna say it like it was. He had a stroke, but if you look at that whole situation, what happened, I think that was an attempt on Trump's life, and I think the Secret Service agent took one for the team. And the thing is, when are they going to realize that you can't do nothing to Trump? He's got the armor of God upon him. These people are stupid. They've already tried to do something to this man. They have. You seen how quick they killed Kennedy? And that was over just wanting to tell us about aliens and stuff. I mean, honestly, really, that's a lot of what it was, folks. Believe it or not. So, go over this next one. Sorry about that. Intel operative who altered Obama's passport records turned FBI informant on boss John Brennan, then turned up murdered in D.C. Oh, another thing. Did you guys hear about the 48-year-old woman, I believe, they found stuffed in the trash compactor of Abedin's house? Or their apartment? Her and Wiener's apartment? Oh, yeah, that was really, it was like, okay, did you think that they weren't going to find her? So a key witness in a federal probe into Barack Obama's passport information stolen and altered from the State Department was gunned down and killed in front of a district church in D.C. Lieutenant Quarles Harris, Jr., 24, who had been cooperating with the federal investigators, was found late at night, slumped dead inside a car. He's reportedly waiting to meet the FBI agents about his boss, John Brennan. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. It's early in the morning, so bear with me. I'm trying to get my energy drink into me. My coffee pot gave out, so now it's a little bit of energy drink. So back in March 2008, the State Department launched an investigation of improper computer access to the passport records of Barack Hussein Obama, and days later those of Hillary Clinton and John McCain. The investigation centered on one employee, a contact worker for a company that was headed by Brennan, a key Obama campaign advisor who later became assistant to the president and deputy national security advisor for Homeland Security and counterterrorism. Ultimately, Brennan was appointed CIA director. First, Obama's passport records were accessed and altered. Then, days later, likely to provide cover, Brennan's private intel company accessed Clinton's and McCain's records, as the State Department had already flagged the Obama breach by that time. Brennan's company accessed and altered Obama's passport before the 2018 presidential election, while Brennan was also working on Obama's campaign team after the election. Brennan took a job inside the White House. So if there's anybody that is guilty of the stuff that's why they're projecting onto the Trump administration the things that they did. You know, that's all it is. And I don't know if you guys, let me see. I want to show you guys something. I don't know. I'm sure plenty of you have already seen it. Because it was something that pretty much, you know, it wasn't something that was hid very good. Well, you just happened to see a phone number. Thank God I changed that a long time ago. Okay. So let's see. I'm going down here because it's in my Twitter feed. Okay, it's right here in the pictures. This picture went viral after it popped up of Obama wearing this. Pretty much a Luciferian occult costume. These kind of costumes are usually worn at Illuminati parties. And just like if you go back and look in the 70s, I believe it was the Rothschilds had a get-together where they wore a bunch of stuff like this. And right away, the freaks tried to debunk it, saying it was photoshopped. And then they couldn't debunk it. It's not photoshopped, folks. All you have to do is invert the picture, and you can tell it's not a copy and paste job by no way. And this guy right here, I'm not sure, I can't remember what his name is, but he is into politics too. He's a politician of some sort. But yeah, so yeah, old Satan himself. What do you do? What do you do? Exactly, Cynthia. The ones that were screaming at the Peter Strzok's hearing, that's what they wanted. That's why they did that. They wanted to bring that out. Well, I know, Peep, I know there was more to it for Kennedy. But that's some of it. I'm just going to say. I'm not saying that was all of it, but that was some of it. Because he did his speech on secret societies and stuff, and it was just crazy. I want to say hello to everybody that's in here. Thanks for being here. It's great to see you guys all again. So, yeah, that's just some of the local news. Or local news. Some of the news that's going on. I thought it'd be interesting. You know, it's crazy. So let's go. I want to go watch, because I'm going to show you guys something that I think, if you pay attention to certain things, you can pretty much see a lot of things. There's no doubt about it. I don't want to. So let's watch this little clip. Unfortunately, it's CNN, but oh well. And I'll probably get my video flagged by CNN, of course, the Communist News Network. So let's watch this real quick. Oh, hold on. No, never mind. We're not watching that. They're not gonna see. It's not going to let you look at the. They're going to try to put their 2 cents into it. Here we go. Here's the full exchange between Representative Jim Jordan and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. So, let's take a look at this. And I really want to keep my mic audio on. So, it's hard to do that though, because there's a lot of body language that Rosenstein does that is so telling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rosenstein, why are you keeping information from Congress?
Congressman, I am not keeping any information from Congress that it's appropriate.
In a few minutes, Mr. Rosenstein, I think the House of Representatives is going to say something different.
I don't agree with you, Congressman. I don't believe that's what they're going to say, and if they do, they'll be mistaken.
I disagree, but I think in a few minutes the House of Representatives is going to go on record saying you haven't complied with requests from a separate and equal branch of government, that you haven't complied with subpoenas, and you got 7 days to get your act together. I think that's what's going to happen in a few. And that's not Jim Jordan. I think that's the House. I think that's a majority of the House of Representatives. In just a few minutes, I think that's going to happen. And I want to know why you won't give us what we've asked for.
Sir, I certainly hope that your colleagues are not under that impression. That is not accurate, sir. And
it is accurate. We have caught you hiding
Mr.
information,
Chairman, can we allow the witness to answer? Mr. Chairman, point of order. We can go to Mr. Jordan's press conference and listen to him, but we came here to hear from the witnesses.
The time belongs to the gentleman.
Mr. Rosenstein,
can we allow him to answer?
We have caught you hiding information.
We allow him to answer.
He will be permitted to answer when Mr. Jordan.
Why do we have them here?
We'll allow him additional time to answer.
Why are they not allowed to answer?
The gentleman's out of order. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Mr. Rose, let me make this one point, then I'll let you answer.
Mr. Jordan, I'd like to
let me make this one point,
sir.
where we've caught you hiding information, then you can answer. Why did you hide the fact that Peter Strzok and Judge Contreras were friends? Why did you redact that in the documents you gave to us? Judge Contreras is kind of important. FISA court judge, more importantly, just as importantly, the judge that heard Mike Flynn's case. Why did you try to hide that from us?
Mr. Jordan, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to respond. I've heard you make those sort of allegations publicly on TV.
I got it
and if you let
right
me
here.
respond, sir.
Mr. Chairman, he should be given
Right
the
here.
opportunity
Now, Mr.
to
Jordan,
answer.
It's redacted.
I am the deputy.
Now, did you hear that? You heard her chime in, right? Cynthia, what you said.
Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Okay? I'm not the person doing the redacting. I'm responsible for responding to your concerns as I have. I have a team with me, sir. It's just a fraction of the team that's doing this work, and whenever you brought issues to my attention, I have taken appropriate steps to remedy them. So your statement that I'm personally keeping information from you, trying to conceal information
You're
from
the
the
boss,
American
Mr.
people, is
Rosenstein.
not true. That's correct. And my job is to make sure that we respond to your concerns. We have, sir. Now, I've appointed Mr. Lausch, who is managing that production, and my understanding is it's actually going very well, sir. So I appreciate your concerns.
Again, I think the House of Representatives is going to say otherwise.
But your use of this to attack me personally
Why did you?
is
It's not
deeply
a
wrong.
personal.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. May the witness be permitted to answer the question?
It's not personal.
The gentleman will suspend. The witness is going to have an opportunity to say whatever he wants at the end of Mr. Jordan's 5 minutes. Until the
It is
end
not
of those
personal.
5 minutes, they're his time.
I appreciate.
Now, you know what what I love is the fact that these swamp rats are sitting here and chiming in, okay? They're chiming in knowing that their chime-in is not allowed, okay? And I busted up laughing when Strzok was his testimony, because you actually saw the mouth of some of these Democrat swamp rats drop. They're like, what's going on? Why can't... And I don't think they don't realize this hearing means nothing. This hearing was for optical only. This hearing was just for looks, folks. And why they wanted it just for looks? Exactly what the Democrats are doing. It's exactly why. Just to prove a point. And they did a heck of a job. I'll tell you that. They did it. God bless them.
Appreciate your service. It's not personal. We just want the information. Why did you tell Peter Strzok not to answer our questions yesterday? When I asked Peter Strzok if he'd ever communicated with Glenn Simpson, He gave us the answer he gave us dozens of times. On advice of FBI counsel, I can't answer that question. Why couldn't he answer that question?
Mr. Jordan, I appreciate your sincere concerns, but I didn't give Peter Strzok any instructions. If there was some problem with the instructions he had, I'll be happy to look into it.
Not what his FBI lawyer said.
Mr. Jordan, when you find some problem with a production or with questions, it doesn't mean that I'm personally trying to conceal something from you. It means we're running an organization that's trying to follow the rules, and we're going to respond.
You know what was interesting? When I asked him if he'd ever talked to Bruce Ohr, he said he had. Said he had 3 times in 2016 and 2017. Then I asked him, have you ever talked to Nellie Ohr? And he said, no, I haven't. I said, well, why can you answer that question? Because Nellie Ohr worked for Glenn Simpson, worked for Fusion. He could answer that question, but he couldn't answer because FBI counsel told him he couldn't. He couldn't answer the question whether he'd ever communicated with Glenn Simpson.
Now, the reason he couldn't answer that question is because if he did answer that question, it would incriminate himself.
Well, too bad, motherfucker. This is motherfucking America. This is motherfucking America. People like Encyclopedia Dramatica are allowed to stand alone, are allowed to express my beliefs and my points of view, even if you don't like them. Take that, you commie-ass bastard motherfuckers.
Did you spit on your own camera, bro?
Fuck you. I hope you die. You know what? I don't hope you die. I hope you get hurt so bad that you want to die, but you fucking live after you fucking live.
I swear to God, this guy is a parody of himself. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Midnight Phantom. Esoteric Entity's old alias on YouTube about 3 years ago. Now, I 100% guarantee he's going to claim that me showing footage of him is doxing. But what's the truth is, he's already done face reveals on his Esoteric Entity handle before. So me showing his face isn't doxing if he's already shown his face using that same handle.
Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.
Midnight Phantom wasn't just on YouTube, but he was on DeviantArt as well. More on that later. But Antifa, threatening the children of a journalist. AZ Antifa Front. A reminder before we head to bed, if your movement leaders threaten, uproot, and ruin the lives of Antifa and their children, then you better believe we have no problem threatening your leaders and their kids. Watch your back, alt-Rikers. No one's off limits. Okay. Now, what does Midnight Phantom have to say about this? I love that name, by the way. They've already got us into a position where rational people like myself, oh, he's rational, pff, whatever, would condone firing into one of their black blocs. Okay, let's read that again. They've already got us into a position where rational people like myself would condone firing into one of their black blocs. If they keep threatening people and rioting, they will run into someone who's going to shoot into their crowd and kill quite a few of them. Oh, that's so nice of you to say, Midnight. I'm looking forward to it, is what Midnight Phantom says. Wow. Totally not a piece of shit, right? Now, what else does he say? This honestly isn't even about politics anymore. They are a domestic terrorist organization. Isn't it terrorism to fire into a crowd of people? Which is something that you want to happen. I mean, you're obviously promoting terrorism. Clear as day. Oh, Midnight Phantom says, I'm getting a gun as soon as I can. Holy shit. Can somebody send this fucker to a therapist or get him away from guns? Get him away from people, man. This guy isn't fucking sane. Okay, another awesome thread by Midnight freaking Phantom. My art project. LOL, it's called. Okay, here's him beheading Hillary Clinton. Here's him lynching Michelle Obama. Wow. Wow is all I got to say. Last time I made a video exposing his past behavior, he said, "Oh, it doesn't count. I'm not like that anymore." Okay, I've shown you clear examples of him promoting terrorism, right? Okay, well, here's him promoting terrorism today.
Hey everyone, so I figured that YouTube may have actually learned something after their office got shot up, but that was dumb of me to assume that. Well, anyway, as you all probably saw, my book review of the Parkland Manifesto was taken down from YouTube because of, quote, harassment and bullying.
Call me crazy, but it seems like, he hasn't changed. So, am I crazy, or does that sound like a threat?
Hey everyone, so I figured that YouTube may have actually learned something after their office got shot up, but that was dumb of me to assume that.
Okay, this can be interpreted in two ways. You should have learned your lesson the first time you freaking got shot up. Are you trying to get shot up again? Which is a threat of violence. Or the other interpretation, the fact that they got shot up was a lesson, a good lesson that they should have learned from. So that's promoting terrorism. So either it was a threat of terrorism at the very worst, or at the very least, promoting terrorism. Yeah, dude, you haven't changed. You still promote terrorism, and you do threats of terrorism. And not only that, you freaking still disable comments.
I am removing the like and dislike status in all of my videos. You do hate me, don't say that you don't hate me. Oh, we don't hate you, we're just criticizing you. Bull fucking shit. Then look, read your own motherfucking comments. See how hateful the attitude that you post towards me is, okay? Don't you fucking lie to me like that. Don't you lie to people reading the comments like that. I know your deal. And everyone else who's not full of shit, doesn't have their head up their ass, knows your deal too! Okay? You fucking, you guys, you're the lowest form on the motherfucking gene pool, you know that? You guys, you are the silencers of freedom of speech. You guys should be motherfucking ashamed of yourself, you know that? You guys should fucking, you guys should kill yourself. You should, I mean it, you really should kill yourself.
Yeah, he's not like this anymore, even though he disables dislike and like ratios today. Are you starting to see that his past argument that he's no longer like this is full of crap?
Now the first thing you might notice when you see his profile and his epic mascot with a giant hammer of logic, you're probably going to think he's a furry. And you're completely correct, because he is a furry. And of course, the first rule of being a furry is that every furry has a DeviantArt account. Esoteric's DeviantArt account was known as Midnight Phantom, which has since been banned, but we can still find some interesting stuff about it. And believe me, I entered a rabbit hole when I decided to look into his account. Sonic 4 fetishes. That's right, he has a 4 role-playing fetish.
Vor, short for vorophilia or vorophilia, a fetish in which one fantasizes about being eaten alive or eating another creature alive, sometimes known as phagophilia. The most common type of vor is soft vor, being swallowed or swallowing whole with no bloodshed. There's also the less common hard vor, which involves the tearing and chewing of flesh. Other types of vor include macrophilia and microphilia, in which one character involved in the vor is larger or smaller than normal.
Here he is asking Tails from the Sonic series if he has ever eaten a human other than Jay.
Yes, he's sexually attracted to Tails, who is 8 years old, and he claims that everybody else in the world's a pedophile when he has these sexual fetishes. Projection much?
Good rock. Yeah. What's up, Tony?
Have you ever looked closely at the trees? I went out just yesterday, and I did. And I had to touch a few. because I couldn't believe my eyes. So I took a picture of 3, and if you'd like me to go taking a picture of more and doing the same thing, I'm certainly mighty happy to oblige you. Have a look at 3 photos and tell me what you see. Have we forgotten to see that nature is communicating with us? And that is our true power, is the communication we have with nature. Nature. What's it trying to show us? I just thought I'd run with this one. 3 pictures of 3 trees. Leave a comment below and tell me what you see. This is based on pareidolia, conjecture, and speculation. But if no 2 brains are alike, then no one should see the same things I do in these 3 photos. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I didn't expect to do this, but today. The first one is of a picture that's right by a park. And I sat in that park today and looked at all the trees, and I was smiling because little children were running underneath them, and I thought, yep, you are protected. And others may perceive it as something very different, but that's just a reflection of their own perspectives and perceptions. Here we go.
Where is he? Where is he?
We're looking for the people on YouTube who don't click like on videos.
Possible verbal attacks on President Trump. There are none left. All that's left is violence, and some on the left appear to be encouraging that. Progressives have graduated from rhetoric to physical action. For example, congressional candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is calling on progressives to occupy airports and ICE their jobs, and people from flying on airplanes, for that matter. Former Hillary Clinton aide Philippe Reines, who was just in our previous segment, has brought air horns to the White House in an attempt to keep the president and his family from sleeping. Congresswoman Maxine Waters of Los Angeles wants Trump administration officials harassed whenever they dare go out into public. And plenty of regular people seem to be on board with that. That shouldn't surprise you. They have been told the president is a Nazi secret agent working for our greatest enemy, Vladimir Putin. If you really believed that, what wouldn't you do? Why wouldn't you use violence to save your country? You probably would. Things might get worse from here. The weather is getting hotter. We've got 6 weeks to go until September. The midterms are getting closer. Harassment and occupation could easily turn into something far worse. You know what we're talking about. People are being primed for that. And the left is recklessly egging it on. And they're not even doing it on behalf of the interests of Americans, but literally for the sake of foreigners. The Montenegrins you must be ready to die for some reason. The illegal immigrants who apparently now have a God-given right to enter this country. Nobody on the left is occupying Purdue Pharma to protest the opioid epidemic. The tens of thousands of people killed by opioids last year were mostly born in America. They don't help big business or get Democrats elected, so they don't matter. Congressman Eric Swalwell represents California, and he joins us tonight. Congressman, what's the penalty for treason?
Tucker, good evening. The penalty that we are all paying right now for the president's treason is we are losing our allies. We see a wrecking ball threatening our freedoms here at home. And by the president's own definition of treason, Tucker, let's just use that.
What's your definition of treason?
Betrayal of the American people.
But treason's a capital offense.
Why doesn't his definition matter? He's the president. He said that Democrats committed treason when we didn't.
Congress.
I'm telling you, he's the president. He said Democrats committed treason when we didn't stand up for him at the State of the Union. His conduct in Helsinki was beyond that.
Is treason. So treason is punishable by death. It's an actual crime, and I think you're an attorney. You would know that. So when you tell your constituents that the President of the United States has committed a death penalty offense, are you concerned that maybe, just possibly, you're torquing up the rhetoric past the point of reasonable conversation?
No, I'm saying that the president, by his own definition,
don't blame the president. Don't blame.
Oh, he has a lot to be blamed for.
It's not your job to take the president's definitions. You're an elected official. Hold on, slow down. I want to know what you think. If I just interviewed Trump, if I want to know what he thinks, I'll ask him. I want to know what you think. You're accusing the president of a capital offense. Why wouldn't it be more useful for the rest of us to explain specifically the policies that you disagree with, and we could have a debate on them? If you think the United States has an obligation to defend NATO members, tell us why. Instead, he's a treasonous Nazi. You think that's helpful?
Oh, I didn't call him a Nazi, Tucker, but why don't you have a problem that the President of the United States wants to turn over an innocent U.S. ambassador to the Russians? Don't you have a problem? Do we draw a line somewhere? Do we want to hear the transcript?
I have a problem with a lot of things the president has said. But I'm asking you, who is one of the people accusing the president of treason, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, is that the kind of rhetoric, again, as an elected official, that you think spurs thoughtful, constructive conversation that brings the country together, or does it whip the morons into a frenzy and increase the likelihood of violence? Well, honestly, give me a real answer.
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful country that has always added freedoms, and we have a wrecking ball president right now.
Don't give me the stupid talking points.
No, he's working.
So, like, why are you doing this?
With an enemy, Tucker. Tucker, you may not like the answer. You may not like the answer, but
no, but it's just dumb. I mean, working with an enemy, Russia's our enemy.
What's dumb is that
really. So every president who met with Russia is committing treason.
president who went over to Helsinki, had a private meeting, agreed to turn over a U.S. ambassador to an enemy, and sided with them over our own intelligence committee. At what point do you draw a line and say, that's not a U.S. president, that's just the prime minister of Russia defending the president of Russia? At what point do you say that?
So you think that the president is more loyal to Russia than the United? I mean, I guess I would just remind you that you're a member of Congress. You're not supposed to talk like a child or make reckless accusations or say things you don't understand or encourage people to commit violence. No, I'm just shocked that you're talking like this. I mean, you don't like the president because you think he's irresponsible.
Do you want it to be led by somebody who is siding with the Russians over the United States?
Settle down, son. I'm older than you are. Don't call into question my love of the country, please. Come on now.
Tucker, please.
Let's have a conversation.
Private conversation with a dictator. Agreed to turn over a U.S. ambassador. Sided with them over our own intelligence community.
Let's just stop for 1 second.
Yeah.
You think it is treasonous for an American president to meet privately with the head of state who we don't get along with? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's a betrayal of the United States to side with Russia over our own intelligence community, to agree to turn over a U.S. ambassador to Russia who is innocent, knowing what the fate of that
So let me ask you this. Should the president meet with the leader of China? Obviously, a dictatorship kills its political enemies, practices censorship, actually has a great deal of censorship it inflicts on American companies. Should he meet with the Chinese premier, or would that be treason as well?
If we're going to get something out of it. We didn't get anything out of it.
Hold on. So you're saying it is okay because a lot of your constituents get money from China, as we know. I mean, you represent the Bay Area. China pumps a lot of money into...
Don't insult the Bay Area.
I'm not insulting the Bay Area. I'm from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I'm noting a fact, which is China makes a lot of your constituents rich. China's a more repressive country than Russia. Russia doesn't censor the internet the way that China does. Yeah. I mean, let's just be real. But you don't have any problem with that at all, do you? All the freedom stuff doesn't mean squat to you, does it?
No, let's focus on the country that attacked us and the president who met with that dictator right after those indictments came down.
What about the Saudis? Are you cool with us meeting with the Saudis? They behead people, they kill gays. You okay with that? They don't let women drive up until recently. Yeah. That's okay with you, though.
Tucker, I think I see why you want to distract from the president and what he did yesterday.
I'm trying to know what the rules are here.
Tucker, tell me why you're okay with it. Tell me why you're okay with what the president did yesterday, because I don't understand why you are.
Meeting with Putin? Because Putin is one of the most powerful leaders in the world militarily.
Are you okay with what he said, that he sided with Putin? Are you okay with that?
He is skeptical of American intelligence reports that don't explain their conclusions.
Don't give me the talking points, Tucker.
Were you okay with him? That's how I feel
siding with Russia? Were you okay with him
siding with Russia? I'm never okay with an American official siding with the foreign government over our own.
Are you okay with him turning a U.S. ambassador over to Russia?
With American leaders meeting with heads of state we disagree with.
Are you okay with him
accuse
turning
you
a U.S.
of being
ambassador?
A traitor if you met with the Saudis or the Chinese, or indeed with Putin. I would like to interview Putin. Does that make me a traitor?
What about turning over Ambassador McFaul to the Russians? What do you think about that? They didn't deny that today at the press conference. That is so disturbing. Do you have an opinion on that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It sounds like you don't.
We've kind of run out of time for DNC talking points, but I would urge you to stop using the term treason because I think it's mindless, and I also think it's irresponsible.
I'm using the president's definition, just the president's definition.
Well, okay. Thank you, Congressman. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Dave Rubin reports, hosts the Rubin Report on YouTube, which is excellent, and he joins us tonight. So, Dave, the problem I have with the rhetoric is that it makes any kind of intelligent conversation impossible. I do think that there are real issues at the heart of the Putin-Trump summit, and you can have whatever view you want on them, but they seem like they're worth discussing. The second you start calling people traitors, accusing them of a felony, how can you talk those issues through?
Yeah, well, first off, it's always good to be with you, Tucker, you racist, homophobic Nazi, you. So,
it's unbelievable.
On that note, yes, the rhetoric on both sides, but particularly the left, has been ramped up to a point where we're basically getting to the place where we will be excusing violence if it's not excused already.
Yes.
And this mob mentality that we've talked about a bunch of times before, it's spreading everywhere. And I did a video a couple months back how internet culture is becoming mainstream culture. The trolling and attacking and fighting that used to be relegated just to the sort of basement of the internet, is now leaking out everywhere, and our politicians are now telling people to troll people at their homes and dox people and all of this awful stuff. I mean, just a great sort of simple example that I can give you is when I was on the car ride over here tonight to do this show, a Hollywood director, actor, producer, great guy who I know, who's a lefty, who you would disagree with on a ton of stuff, a guy by the name of Mark Duplass, who's a great guy who I've had on my show, who's been reaching across the aisle trying to say to the liberals and the left, you know, guys, let's try to be a little more tolerant. He put out a tweet basically saying, you know, you might want to follow conservative Ben Shapiro. He's a decent guy, and maybe it'll open up your eyes to some stuff. I'm paraphrasing, basically. The amount of hate that he got caused the guy to delete the tweet because the mob just goes after anyone that dares say, let's be tolerant. And if that's really where we're at right now, then yeah, what you've been talking about on this show for quite some time about this all escalating to violence, if we can't talk, then the only thing left is violence. And I'm doing everything I can to avoid that. I think you're trying to do it. And I think there's a bunch of other people trying to do it too. And we've just got to get louder and keep showing people that that's truly the answer here.
I hate violence. And if you ever hear me excusing it, I hope you call me on it because it's wrong. Dave, thank you.
I promise you I will.
Good. Please do. Rand Paul may be one of the very few lawmakers on either side who sees value in the president meeting with Vladimir Putin. Is he a traitor too? He joins us to answer that question next.
Well, good morning, everybody. Today is July 18th, and I want to bring up a topic today because I ran into a conflicting conversation yesterday with somebody important who believes that the LGBT has absolutely no connection into legalizing pedophilia, normalizing these things, and that pedophilia just becomes the next step. So what I want to show you is how far back the social programming has been going to bring about this whole agenda. And this person doesn't see it, they're academia. And it was a very kind of stressful conversation. It was rather disturbing because victims of this pedophilia, the biggest problem is the normal people do not see the signs. They don't see it happening. Many children are victimized and their parents or guardians or friends around them never see the signs. And so there's no protecting these children. This is the real reason I want to bring this up, because this is an educated person who was upset with me for saying that the LGBT agenda is truly about bringing about pedophilia. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the social engineering of the baby boomers that kicked it off. Now we're going back to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is 1975. Now I'm not going to get into it too much because of copyright issues, but I'm just going to show you within this movie there's incest, there's homosexuality, there's infidelity, there is transvestite, okay, all of these things. This is social engineering for the future, and this is brought through the baby boomers, and it carries on today. So this conversation with this person, she's in the age category below me and is unaware, truly unaware of the real agenda, and it was a very stressful conversation. And if she's listening today, I hope that you watch all the way through, because I will show you what they're doing, how they're normalizing all of this behavior, and the ultimate goal is for pedophilia. So let's start with this. 1975 goes into the subconscious, and it reflects into our society all the way through. This is all pre-planned. The LGBT and going into pedophilia is at least a 50-year agenda. So here we go.
Transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
The Time Warp, the song Time Warp Again, is part of a trauma-based mind control and ritual. But what we're going to do with him is we're just going to take the very end excerpt, and let me see, pardon me for just a moment, let me get dialed in. It's important that people understand this, because if you think, she believes it's a natural movement. She believes that people are very sexual and they're just coming into their own, and now we're more free than ever before, and it's freedom of expression. And she's not recognizing the mind control that has been going on for a very long time to bring this agenda about. She's younger than me, but she is academia, and, you know, academia should know these things. I'm just saying. Okay, so here we go. Let me go into this.
When you see the formally dressed criminologist wearing an ascot...
Okay, hold on. I really actually want to take you back to the heart right there. Okay, we'll take it right here.
...that they're ready to service their master. Frank, the master, has a special tattoo. The word boss and a heart with an arrow through it. Heart as butt. Arrow as phallus. It's through the exploitation of the combination of phallus and butt that he dominates and rules. When you see the formally dressed criminologist wearing an ascot, spell that out and double the letter S. A man's tie is widely recognized as a phallic symbol. This combination is the key to their control, you see? Why does the ritual involving Brad and Janet as the innocent victims begin as the coffin clock strikes the midnight hour? Why is the ritual showing in theaters, done as a midnight movie? SRA ritual may begin at the witching hour, midnight, as ritual nights often begin for other practicing pagans. When the casting of a spell is the reason for the ritual, the energy raised is timed to be sent out into the universe at 3 a.m. That's 3 hours into the day, an hour that produces 666 through the number of minutes in an hour, 60. This practice of honoring times and ritual symbols is necessary to the operation of their craft.
Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. We're just doing excerpts. Now let's go into current information. It's very important that people understand how they're bringing about the pedophilia, to normalize it through the LGBT. We're not saying that these people in the LGBT are going to be pedophiles. We're not saying that, although you're getting some weird stuff here. We're not saying that. We're saying that the elite players at the top want pedophilia legalized, and this is the program to bring it about, and it's social engineering, and it takes about 50 to 60 years, and they're going to get it. If people are not aware of how it comes about, like this academic person who has knowledge but doesn't understand any of this, they're going to get away with it. And I am really starting to worry about our children, because this is an adult at around 48 years old, and she is not aware of all of this. She thinks it's just freedom of expression and it's naturally come about. It has not. I'm just saying. So let's go into what's going on right now. This is July 12th. Pedophilia included as sexual orientation on new LGBT pride flag. I mean, I hope you're listening. So anyway, the pedophiles are attempting to rebrand themselves as MAPs, or minor attracted persons, in an effort to normalize pedophilia and gain acceptance in mainstream America by being included as part of the expanding LGBT plus community umbrella. And if you notice, the plus starts with a P. So this is they're laughing in your face. They'll call it P and they'll go, oh, well, that means plus. That doesn't mean pedophilia. No, they're laughing in your face. So according to the Urban Dictionary, and this is going to be hard for me to read, the blanket term MAP does include, infants, prepubescent children, pubescent children, and post-pubescent children. So some MAPs also refer to themselves as NOMAPs, or non-offending minor attracted persons. These pedophiles seek to be part of the LGBT plus community even going so far as to make a pride flag for Gay Pride Month. She is not recognizing the agenda that is unfolding. This is very scary because this is how children get victimized, by regular good people not seeing the signs of what's happening. And then this goes undetected. And these children, it's off the scale. And I could bring you even more alarming stuff, but I'm not going to, so that I can maybe live another day. If you get into Tory Smith, he's talking about a whole underground system, a rail system, going under the Denver airport, the Arlington airport, etc., worldwide, shipping these children, pedophilia. Over 3,000 children a day in the United States go missing. That's a drop in the bucket. This is a worldwide, and as we talked about the reptilians, they like the babies for food. It is their food. So here we go. The PSA to minors, if you see this pride flag anywhere, be warned. This flag is for MAPS, which stands for Minor Attracted Persons. This is a flag for pedophiles. So if anybody doesn't think they're not working their way, you are not paying attention. Okay, and I'm showing you that it goes back all the way to 1975 and before that. So the Daily Caller reports that the No Map community tries to pull at people's heartstrings by claiming that pedophiles are misunderstood, marginalized people, and that as long as their attraction to children is not acted upon, or in some cases, when they get permission from the child, that they should not be villainized. Rebranding pedophiles as minor attracted persons. The plan to legalize pedophilia. You and I know this. But unfortunately, people not educated and a lot of people in academia don't see it. And it's very scary. Who's going to protect these children if the older generations do not recognize it? You can't. You can't. This is why this ends up happening to children, because the good people don't see the signs. So the sites such as Prevention Project claim to be aimed at helping children, posting quotes like the one below, reminiscent of testimonials of struggling gay youth under headlines like "Everyone Needs Support." Now, I'm not going to really read it, but it's all about gaining sympathy. I'm just a great person. I just have these feelings. I don't act on them, but I'm a wonderful person. Okay, and this is what he's saying. So the mini blogs exist on the Tumblr showing support for the MAPS, claiming they should be part of the LGBT community and attempting to create safe spaces for these minor attracted persons. The blog Pedophiles About Pedophilia also presents many sob stories of marginalized pedophiles in pretty pastel colors, claiming that they mean no harm and they just want to be loved like everyone else has shown in such headlines is why pedophilia and pedophiles are not a risk to children. Growing up a pedophile, and how I came out of it as an anti-contact pedophile to the woman I love. This name change seems to follow in the liberal trend of rebranding things by giving them more politically correct names. But in the next step, really, are they normalizing pedophilia? Yes, they are. That is the ultimate goal, as many of you know. The other thing is, the other thing I wanted to mention was about the clowns. Okay, remember recently about the clowns, they started having those very scary faces and everything, and they were scaring children. Well, the clown used to be the party. You know, when you had a birthday party, you'd get a clown. They were the fun. They were equated with good times and children and happy times. Then they started putting these very scary faces on it, and what did they do? They started bringing in the transvestites into the classrooms, exposing them to very young children, as though they wanted to get rid of the clowns so that they could bring in the influence of the transvestites. And that's where you are. You even had Michelle Obama in a library bringing in a transvestite for the children. They're bringing them into the classes. And then I mentioned about the sexualizing of children, and she said, we're sexual creatures. Well, to some degree we are, but understand that they control all the media on the planet, including the fashion, the sports, all the magazines, including the young teen magazines, of course, all of the movie magic, all the media, everything but a tiny sliver on the internet. They control it all. And when you control that, you control the reality on this planet, and you can direct the masses any way you want, because it's called programming. Television programming, all of it is programming, including the internet, and this is the real plan. So I hope this opens the eyes to this person, because these children are at risk from good people who do not see the signs, okay? So everybody take it easy, and I just wanted to get that message out. Okay, take care, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye. Well, good morning, everybody. Today is December 8th. Now, I'm going to try to make this sort of quick. Now, I haven't forgot about the AI, but what I want to focus on today is why are these fires happening in California? I tried to explain to you that China owns California. They actually own all of it, and they also own Hawaii, but they own a lot more than that. They're coming in to destroy America. They're going to turn us into a third world country. I actually believe that Rothschild is basically the CEO of this planet, and he's just adjusting everything the way he wants, okay? And we are selling all our secrets to China as well, and all of these things going on. But I'm going to show you how they're doing it, how they're destroying America from the inside out. We did go over the Deagle.com. It's obvious something not good is going to happen to America. So let's start with this. The West Coast housing crisis drives up U.S. homeless numbers. Yeah. It's all part of the plan. China is coming in to get this property. So the homeless population in the U.S. has increased this year for the first time since 2010, driven by a surge in the number of people living on the streets in West Coast cities. Yeah. Rents have soared beyond affordability for many lower-paid workers, and now even a temporary setback can be enough to leave them out on the streets. Yes, they're getting us out of our homes through an economical way. Okay, so the study by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development revealed nearly 554,000 homeless people across the U.S. during local tallies conducted in January, up nearly 1% from 2016. So of the total of 193,000 who had no shelter, they had no shelter and were forced to live all over, including cars, tents, and streets. The unsheltered figure rose by over 9% compared to 2 years ago, 2015. Do you remember how we defaulted with China in 2015 in April? And so what they did is allowed them the right to take our property. That's what's going on, okay? So in order to keep this kind of streamlined, believe it or not, it was getting too long. This is take number 2. So to increase, it's almost entirely due to a surge in homelessness in Los Angeles and other cities facing severe shortages of affordable housing, says HUD officials. The increase is almost entirely due. It's entirely due to all of the weather warfare going on, just so you know. Okay? So, overall homeless population in California, Oregon, and Washington soared by 14% over the past 2 years. It's being done by design. Okay, that's what I want you to know. Climbed to 23% to 108,000 in Seattle. And the unsheltered population grew by 44% over 2 years to nearly 5,500 Sacramento, California, which also had a 1-year increase of over 1,000 homeless people. Okay, kind of yakking on there. So let's get into, let's see. Let me show you. The U.S. gives China eminent domain over our U.S. property. So we do have to go back in time, people, okay? Of the 08, 09, these things, these take steps. Everything that they do takes decades to put together. So we're in these, I wouldn't say the final thrones of it, but it's certainly not looking good, not boding well for America. Now, I don't know where Trump sits on this, okay? This is done between the Clintons and China. So they are definitely guilty there. So let's connect some dots today, boys and girls, to learn about the highest possible treason that has happened in this country. This is February 09. Okay, this is as real and as ugly as it can get. Number 1, China begins its covert war on the free American Republic in the 1950s by taking over much of the pharmaceutical drug manufacturing for American and British Big Pharma. Woo! I did not know that, people. That explains the over 100,000 Americans who die every year from taking their pharmaceuticals properly. And the whole pharmaceutical company, over 250,000 die from just Big Pharma altogether, okay, the medical services and all of that. So this is an outgrowth of the Rothschilds opium ring processing. There you go. By the British West Indies Company during the 1800s. Yes, things have not stopped. And it's brokered by the City of London and Washington, D.C. Number 2, arch-illuminist and Satanist Henry Kissinger, whom Putin claims is his best buddy, normalizes trade relations with China during the Nixon years. Again, it takes decades to do this goal of destroying America from the inside out. Number 3, eventual LDS Mormon Church. Hinckley, via the church-owned Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii, establishes a hard currency pipeline with Beijing, exchanging bank trade credits for CIA British M16 drug services rendered into hard gold and silver, while hiding behind the cloak of world religion. This is facilitated by the LDS Church, built and controlled the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone adjacent to Hong Kong. So when Hinckley is made LDS president, his first official visit as world prophet is to China, where the Chinese communist leaders give him a hero's welcome and a confetti parade. Number 4, Arkansas natives Bill Clinton and Sam Walton massively increased contracts with China's factories over 2,000%. This results in a tremendous imbalance of trade with China. Thanks to the Mormons' special economic zone, China's communist leaders began amassing incredible real wealth in gold and silver. Number 5, China purchases trillions. Here's what really screwed us up. It was all deliberate. China purchases trillions of dollars worth of U.S. Treasury bills and bonds, paying for it with gold and silver provided by the Shenzhen Economic Zone Exchange. I'm sure I said it wrong. Much of the U.S. national debt is purchased from the private Federal Reserve banks in this manner. Number 6, Dr. Jeff Taulenberger of the U.S. Institute of Pathology in Fort Detrick and the world headquarters for biologic weapons development successfully maps the genome of the 1918 killer flu virus responsible for the 1918 pandemic that killed millions. The worst killer virus ever to plague mankind is now ready to be used as a covert weapon disguised as a natural influenza mutation. Yeah, you know, these guys have always got diabolical crap going on in the background, man. That's just how they function. I'm just letting you see this. You have to go back in time to see it. So here we are, 2005. The Illuminati-controlled United Nations announces that the world is long overdue for an influenza pandemic. The H5N1 avian flu is wrongfully demonized as a cover. Okay, so it was a bioweapon. Whoops, knocking my stuff around. Number 7, December 2005, Chinese Defense Minister Chai Haoden delivers a speech to the Chinese military leaders outlining the inevitable expansion of China into Canada, the U.S., and Australia. This is 05. He justifies this because of Chinese radical superiority and thus eminent domain. To accomplish this, Americans would first have to be cleansed by means of a powerful biological weapon, causing 150 to 200 million American deaths. Yeah, what they're doing in California is not a sweet thing. Okay, they're getting rid of the Americans. China is coming in to take California over. The plan would be enacted after the symbolic Olympic Games, beginning at the sacred day of 888. That's interesting. Are concluded. China begins buying oil and gas futures, spiking the worldwide prices to historic levels. Number 8, March 13th, 3/13, 2008, a secret meeting is conducted for the U.S. House and Senate, agents of the Club of Rome give a preview of upcoming events to elected officials who first swear an oath of secrecy. The traitors are briefed that the economy, here it is, will begin its collapse, all by design, in October 2008 and will totally collapse in mid-2009. As events unfold in 2009 and 10, which I was severely attacked in 2009. I mean, there was definitely something going on there. They claimed that we had an AI come back through time travel and create Bitcoin. I don't know, but something strange about 2009, I have to say. We could have been visited by some dark force of some kind. I mean, it was brutal what I went through. So as events unfolded in 2009 and 10, Congress was told of the real possibility of massive civil unrest and even civil war being waged. Detention camps constructed to imprison civil agitators. Number 9, in September 2008, as soon as the Olympics are concluded, China stops buying oil and gas futures while dumping U.S. Treasury bills and bonds. Gasoline prices plummet while the U.S. mortgage loan money becomes tightly constricted. Wasn't that 2008, our housing crisis? Was that 2008? Did I get that wrong? It might have been 2004. So the Club of Rome's agenda is being implemented perfectly. Yes. Number 10, in October, just as explained in March, the economy indeed begins its collapse, with mortgage banks going bankrupt as the Chinese dump their U.S. securities. This causes a worldwide rush to liquidity as money supplies dramatically tighten. I'm also going to bring to you the Russian side of how much property they own in our country too, okay? It gives you a better idea. So number 11, billions of worthless U.S. government bailout debt entries are given to bolster failing U.S. banks. These are worthless because China now controls most of the U.S. real wealth in the form of gold and silver. China refuses to continue investing credit loans to the U.S. Treasury. Number 12, Barack Obama is elected, promising change you can believe in to screw over America. Thank you. After taking office in January, Obama sends Hillary Clinton on a critical mission to China and helps write H.R. 45, a complete grab of America's guns. Ally Adolf Hitler, state leaders who understand what Clinton and Obama agenda with China is about, and they are seeking legal sovereignty to prevent the loss of property to a foreign power. Now here's the enchilada, number 13. China agrees to continue investing in U.S. Treasury bills only after securing the right of eminent domain to physically repossess foreclosed American private property. Think about the storm sales. Think about the 600 acres that China just bought in Texas, too, through the storm sales, most likely. That's why I was saying you got to be careful who you were selling your property to. It's China. So, foreclosed American private property. This move is the equivalent of an unconstitutional surrender following a bloody war. This also gives the Chinese military the legal right to use biological weaponry to clean up America all at once. It gives them the legal right to use deadly force in removing trespassing Americans from occupying Chinese real estate. Hence, the fires in California right now. It gives them the right to use deadly force to get you off their property. Connect these 13 evil dots, and this is what you get. So anyway, the feds grant eminent domain as collateral to China for U.S. debt. Sources at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, China, have just confirmed that the United States of America has tendered to China a written agreement which grants to the People's Republic of China an option to exercise eminent domain within the U.S. as collateral for China's continued purchase of U.S. Treasury notes and existing U.S. currency reserves. The written agreement was brought to Beijing by Secretary, you got it, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the traitor, and was formalized and agreed to during her recent trip to China. This means that in the event the U.S. government defaults on its financial obligations to China, the Communist government of China would be permitted to physically take inside of the USA land, buildings, factories, and perhaps even entire cities to satisfy the financial obligations of the U.S. government. Put simply, the feds have now actually mortgaged the physical land and property of all citizens and businesses in the United States. They've given it to a foreign power, their constitutional power, to take all of our property as actual collateral for continued Chinese funding of U.S. deficit spending and the continuing carrying of the U.S. national debt. This is an unimaginable betrayal of every man, woman, and child in the USA, an outrage worthy of violent overthrow. I want to show you where they actually took over Hawaii and California. Eminent domain is the power of the government to take private property for public use. This happened too, without the consent of the property owner. Under our Constitution, the government can only take when providing just compensation for what they've taken. But who decides what is just compensation? All right, so I need to get into this part. The U.S. goes belly up, and China comes in and says they owed us $2 trillion in Treasury notes and another $2 trillion in actual cash money, which is now worthless. And we are taking the entire state. I'm going to end it right here. Well, almost. We are taking the entire state of Hawaii and the entire state of California in lieu of this bad debt. With the stroke of a Chinese chopstick, Hawaii and California, all the land and the buildings in those states are now owned by China. Okay, there you go. Now, real quick, because this is getting lengthy, Chinagate. Chinagate is about selling our technology through the Clinton Foundation to the Chinese. Okay, and you know what I don't like about what's going on with this is the fact that if the one thing about that Paul Begley interview that got my attention, that if it was being used as predictive programming, in the end of the article, he says, well, the NSA guy is saying we have to spend billions of dollars on our technology because we're so far behind, when in fact, we are creating technology and giving it to all these countries. So it's just another way, guys, to increase our debt so China can take more of the land. That's how they're doing it. The deeper in debt, the more land China owns in America. And you're going to see that Russia owns a lot as well. So lest we forget Chinagate, the most serious scandal in the U.S. history. Well, it's neck and neck. I'm just going to show you real quick. The Chinagate funding scandal plagued in the 1996 Bill Clinton-Al Gore campaign. Yes, it goes back in time. It involves the transfer of America's most sensitive technology, including but not limited to nuclear missiles, satellite technology, and apparently in exchange for millions of dollars in contributions to the 1996 Clinton-Gore re-election effort and the Democratic National Committee. Yeah, the Chinagate scandal of 96 ended up in an award of $900,000 in attorney fees and costs to Judicial Watch 10 years later. The main thing here, we're going to keep this short, as I showed you the other day. Okay, they've been selling these guys. Clinton, she does need to go to jail, man. She's guilty of treason on a scale that's off the charts. I hope this helps. And we're going to be going into Uranium-1 on the next video, but I haven't forgotten about AI either. Okay, that's coming up. Okay, I'm going to keep it at that. That's what's going on. China owns California and Hawaii, and we sold our technology secrets. And now, according to the Paul Begley video yesterday, we now need to spend billions of dollars. Watch this play out in the government now. Oh, we got to have billions of dollars because our technology is behind the times, when in fact, they're giving all our technology away. Okay, guys, you have a good one, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Well, good morning, everybody. Today is the 1st of December, and the year is quickly going away. which brings up the year 2018, which is what we're going to be talking about, how the technology is going to be ramped up and really take a pivotal point next year. Now, the first thing I want to show you is the fantastic mind control to bring about this whole bullshit system in the first place. Earn up to 1 Bitcoin per day. Bitcoin mining has never been easier. And when I tell you they've worked overtime, and you do know that, okay, you've seen that happen. Now let's get back to our article. It's important to see the mind control, okay? Because that's the only way they're going to get this freaking hell on earth. This is insanity at its best, okay? The 5G, the millimeter wave that's going to destroy the quality of your life, your health, increase your chance of cancer by 75%, but oh, you've got to have it. So I just want to show you how mind control is the only weapon on this planet, and that's how they're selling this crap. Okay, so let's start off with Verizon. Verizon to launch 5G first in Sacramento in late 2018. Okay, so the 5G first. I'm really not so sure, people, that the full 5G is actually out there yet. AT&T said it was the 4G Lite Plus. Okay, why is that significant? Because this is supposed to be a test period, 2017, the 11 cities in the U.S., including Europe, etc. Okay, and what they're going to do, if they're not actually using the millimeter wave, it's so deceptive because they're saying, oh, you know, everything's fine, nobody's dying, everything's fine, it's going well, fantastic investment, we need to do this. And yet, you're not actually being subjected to the actual frequency, this millimeter wave that's highly destructive. It's a military grade. It's a weaponized frequency. It's Satan's tool. The whole smart cities is Satan's kingdom being built here. Okay, I just want to reiterate that point for anybody who doesn't quite realize that yet and the importance of knowing that. So anyway, let's look at Verizon as they are pushing. Okay, but what I want to mention, though, the deception is that this was supposed to be a trial run, 2017. But if you're not actually really using the 5G, what they want to do is this 4G Lite Plus, and then next year roll out the infrastructure for the millimeter wave, and then say, hey, we already had a test period, and now we're ready to go. And then it's too late. Okay, so extremely deceptive practice, I believe, is going on with the rollout of this 5G. So let's go into Verizon and what they're up to. Verizon today, just a couple days ago, announced plans for its first 5G residential broadband service launch beginning in Sacramento, California in the second half of 2018. The carrier plans to launch wireless 5G residential broadband services in 3 to 5 U.S. markets in 2018. Verizon has trialed 5G residential applications in 11 markets in 2017. I'm not so sure that's correct. According to AT&T, and you'll see further in this report, I don't think so. I think that's deceptive. I can't prove it yet, but it appears to be. Verizon said its initial 5G residential broadband services could reach approximately 30 million households nationwide. They're talking about next year, I do believe. All of that. This is a landmark announcement for customers and investors who've been waiting for the 5G future to become a reality. No, we're not. We don't want hell on earth with the drones, programmable matter, and the robots. No, we are not. Get that right. So anyway, we appreciate our strong ecosystem partners for their passion and technological support in helping us drive forward with 5G industry standards. Oh boy, I'm so excited for both fixed and mobile applications. The targeted initial launches we are announcing today will provide a strong framework for accelerating 5G future deployment on a global standard. Let's see. All right, we'll just move on to the next. I've been making all these really long videos for you, so we'll try to streamline this one down a little bit. I just want to show you where the technology is today. This is November 29th, T-Mobile has deals to deploy 28,000 small cells in the short term. Right. I really think this is so deceptive, it's really spooky. They won't present this millimeter wave, I don't think, until the infrastructure is complete. And then it's too late. So if you have health issues, which you will, then it's too bad. Just too bad. So here we go. Dallas. T-Mobile has contracted to deploy tens of thousands of small cells to densify, that's what they call it, densify its network in advance of 5G. T-Mobile Vice President of Network Technology and Strategy said Wednesday. Densification is really about moving from that macro tower into the small cell dimension. Yeah, the small cells that will irradiate you in front of your window, etc. Putting right up close to your neighborhood and your home. Yeah, oh, we got to have that. So we've already deployed thousands of small cells, and we're contracted for 28,000 small cells to be deployed in the short term. And while T-Mobile larger rivals are making blockbuster deals to acquire fiber companies to lay the foundations for the 5G network, T-Mobile looks to partner with fiber companies that also operate small cell businesses. Now, what's important to note here is that this whole system could be run on fiber optics. In Italy, the whole smart city, or the smart meters, are all run on fiber optics. The problem is it won't run the driverless cars, your swarms of drones, all your scary-ass technology, okay? That's why they want wireless. We would not even have to go wireless. We could go fiber optics, would not be nearly as deadly at all. So that's another thing going on, and you'll find out why. It's a matter of them making more money by doing it wirelessly. Yeah, of course. That's what we're all about here. Money, 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 greed, etc. So you can do small cells in so many different ways, and I think we have a little bit of a different approach when it comes to small cells. We found the best way to do it is to partner with fiber providers, right, but it could be all fiber optics that not only build and bring that fiber to you, but also build those small cells for you. And that's a very efficient way to actually get to the point when you go from having a few small cells to having tens of thousands in the network.
Open up to tell people who are new, who are watching us, that we're here to have a public conversation about surveillance abuse. Not just the surveillance state, the global surveillance state, but surveillance abuse. The abuses, terrors, traumas, and horrors of the global surveillance state, completely illegal, illegitimate, and unwarranted, extrajudicial, and should be openly and publicly exposed. And among those, extrajudicial activities that the global terror state is engaging in are the use of electromagnetic weapons and neuroweapons on populations. Whether they are directed energy weapons that are termed non-lethal weapons or less lethal weapons and being used by your local PD and the local fusion center, or being tested by various contractors like General Dynamics and Raytheon and Boeing and BAE and various other defense contractors for the US government and other governments, or whether they are neuroweapons, acoustic weapons or electromagnetic neuroweapons that are indeed interfacing with the brain using brain-computer interface chips and BCI technology, or simply, using EMFs or other kinds of RF technologies to induce voices, induce sounds, sensations, smells, images, synthetic dreams, what have you, into the human brain. We are living in the age of the invasion of the human brain. And there are some very dark forces in our militaries and intel agencies that are not merely experimenting with these ghastly technologies, they are using them on people. So people do need to speak openly about that, and that's what we are all about. So welcome again. And they've got the planes starting up here. So every time I come sit out here, there are drones, planes, helicopters. So be ready for the show. I might just show you something every now and then. I can hear them. I think it's basically they've started to route the commercial planes across in a diagonal. I don't know if you can see them, but I'll try to show it. I don't know if you saw that.
It's kind of hard to see because the video is too bright, so the contrast is not there. But what people can do, and actually we should encourage them, because there's something called the 24-hour flight tracker or something like that. I think
that's a good one.
We should find it and put up the link, but it's very, very important. So actually I will search for it in a moment, but I think it's called the 24-hour flight tracker. And you can see the trajectory of, oh, there's Millicent.
Oh, Millicent's here, wonderful. Hi,
Excellent.
Millicent.
Hi, Millicent. Okay, so you can see the flight path of all the commercial airlines. And you can see that there's an entire flight path, being diverted onto Ramola's house, and that happens to a lot of people. And it was very hard to believe for a long while. People, if they, somebody said, "Oh, I've got all these planes being diverted to fly over my house," you would be laughed at. But now with the 24-hour flight tracker, you can actually see it and screenshot it, because what that is about is, first of all, the cartel, the criminal cartel, owns most of the airlines, so it's very easy for them to do. They have money without end, so fuel is not an issue. And it's what they're building is an integrated warfare system. And what many people don't know is that commercial airliners have got military weapons technology loaded onto them. So I think in the UK there was already newspaper articles about the fact that commercial airlines can be in a at the drop of a hat be converted into military planes, should that be required, because they carry most of the parts.
I think Preston James wrote an article in Veterans Today a couple of years ago, touching on this particular subject, that indeed commercial planes are being outfitted with electronic warfare systems. If you think about it, it's just going to look like computer equipment. It's just going to be shoved in with the rest of the, airplane stuff, the dashboard stuff. So it's probably very easy to hide.
Absolutely. I think this is exactly what is happening. And what that means is that when the crime cartel is starting to do live war games, they will pick targets and they will try to machine gun them in their homes with these commercial airlines. So you will see commercial airlines diverting to fly over your house because they are mock killing you. They're aiming at you. So that's exactly what's happening. But anyway, so now we're moving towards court cases, and the 24-hour flight tracker is a very good one, because you'll see little icons of planes move across, and you can screenshot it and then have the exact timestamp, date, and time. And then later on, we can request the flight logs and find out why exactly those planes were flying that way. And if you do it over a long period of time, that's going to be excellent evidence. But it does certainly happen. So I've got some news. I've got some really big news. I've got two really, 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 really big news. Number one, the affidavit template is finished. Hooray! And it is going to be released today. The reason why it's not available for download is, as it always happens, the day on the release, I found a formatting error, which means I have to go through all the cells and I have to reset the cells and make sure it doesn't come out wonky when you print a PDF. So what I did today, and this is why the show is starting late, because I was late, is I had to flee my home and I went to the local McDonald's where I was trying to work because the attacks on me became brutal. So the neighbor lady to the west, she has got a weapon set up and is running into my home, and the neighbors is doing the same thing. So I was working at the McDonald's, and that went actually excellently. I got some work done, but I eventually, when they thought I'm being just too productive, They came, and I was shot at from little mobile phones, and I was trying to film the perpetrators, but I was also blasted by a massive white van. And I think it's called something like the Night Express. I've seen vans like that already, and it's they have a star, a cross on them, which looks a bit like the NATO star. So I think those are actually warfare units, and it might be a fake company, but I have seen them too many times, and these are massive white vans. So as I was sitting in McDonald's using their Wi-Fi and their power sockets, great actually, and their coffee is amazing. But as I was sitting there, suddenly I felt, oh my goodness, my head is about to explode. And then I was trying to figure out who is it in the room, and there was nobody with a mobile phone. And eventually I turned my head and I saw this massive van that had appeared. So we really need to find out who owns that company, and I think I'm collecting more and more evidence to pin them now. But anyway, so the good news is the affidavit template is finished, and the actual collection will start at midnight tonight, when the affidavit will be available for download. And what that means is that there are also notes being prepared, and I will prepare a video to explain how you fill it in, and I'll walk people through. But what it means is now tonight at midnight will be the start shot for the race into courts, and the race to actually stop these criminal psychopaths. Because later on today, especially Ramola has a video she would like to discuss about people being the crime cartel members, openly talking about brain mutilation, giving people brain strokes, crippling people, and they are presenting it as if this was socially acceptable. These are the worst Nazi crimes imaginable, So now the affidavit template will be a real race into courts, because we have to get a court order to stop these people. And if we cannot stop them via court order, the only last resort is a military solution. And the military solution means that somebody needs to go and needs to blow their fucking brains out to stop them. I'm sorry, but this is exactly what it came down to, because now one of the things we are certainly seeing is that people are being murdered in droves. So people are being murdered in communities, people are in my family friend circle, people are dying in large numbers, and victims are contacting me and they are saying, look, all our family members are dying. So these Nazi psychopaths, they are not joking. They want us all dead, and they've got a very tight schedule that they want more than half of us dead over the next 7 years. So the murdering has started, and it's going. And unfortunately, any judge who's not going to, follow the rule of law and is going to give us nonsense, well, he has to go on the list, and we have to get a military solution for these corrupt judges as well. But I don't really want to think about that. What I really want to think about is finding a civilized solution. So this is it. And I'm saying this not to scare you, but I'm saying that to everybody who's listening so that you take this seriously. So this affidavit template took me a lot of work. I nearly died several times doing that. They have severely, done damage to my body over this period by just retaliatory attacks. So this affidavit template is free for you, but for me has been developed at a tremendous cost. So the only way that it's going to be worthwhile for me and for humanity is if you really help me now. You help me, you fill it out honestly, you take part, and you help to blow this wide open. And please know that if you are capable of filling this out, for every one of you, there are thousands of people who will not be able to fill this out for some reason, either because they don't have a computer, because they're homeless, or because they're in a personal situation whereby they literally just cannot or are far too scared. So we have to take this seriously. And now it's really, it's now past midnight in terms of this criminality. Fortunately, we do have some Secret Service people who are helping us and whistleblowers who are helping us honestly. We also do have some fake whistleblowers who are, I think, covert CIA agents and FBI agents, and we will weed them out. I will really weed them out. Every single one I identify, I will just make public, because these people are committing crimes against humanity as well. They are lying, and they are, literally slowing us down. I've got some birds shrieking in the background Ramola, I'm sorry. Could you?
Oh, is that me? Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's some bird that started up and is screaming its head off in the background. I think it's a frequency that just gets amplified. But
it's a blue jay.
Oh, I see. That's what they sound like. We don't have birds like that over here in Switzerland.
Yeah, he is shrieking.
It's important to be screaming like that in Switzerland, you know. But anyway, so the other good news I have, and this shows you again, it's kind of good news, but also really bad news, and it shows the utter urgency of this matter. Is on Tuesday I was working with Siegfried Thomas here in Switzerland. So he came here on last Tuesday. I was in his neighborhood, and we were walking around and collecting evidence in his environment. And that's where we discovered that actually there's a lot of cartel signaling on the front doors of exactly the people that he said later said were involved. And then he came, you know, in return, he came over to me, and we were working in here on Tuesday. And then after we talked through the case, we went to my local police station, and you know, in return for me helping him, he presented himself, you know, as a reporting victim and as a witness, and also as a witness to the fact that I'm, you know, his expert witness in his court case. So the most astounding thing unfolded when we went to the police station, because we walked in and I said, first of all, we had to wait ages for somebody to turn up. And, you know, it's these people sit 5 meters away from the little glass cabin because this is a tiny police station. So it was pretty clear no one really wanted to talk to us. But eventually they turned up, and yes, I said, look, here's a prime witness who can say, he can confirm that he is being assaulted with directed energy weapons. His wife is nearly being killed all the time. He can also confirm that the attacks on women are so much harder. What happened is that the police was utterly uninterested. And I said, but look, he's the main witness, you're the police. Can you just make a record that we were here, maybe ask him some questions? Are you at all interested? And the guy who said, who was there, he said, no, Mr. Schoch is on the case and it's best to talk to him. And I said, well, yes, but Mr. Thomas is only here today. So how about you take some records or some statements from him for Mr. Schoch, perhaps? But no, he didn't want to do that. And then I said, do you know about my case? And he said, yes, of course I know about your case. That's the, and he said, I'm trying to translate from German. He said, this is what everybody is talking about, isn't it? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you have sent these letters to the neighbors, and now everybody is calling our police station. And at first I didn't even understand, because the Swiss word he used for, you know, everybody's calling our phone was läuten. And in German, läuten means somebody's ringing your doorbell. And I thought at first he means, oh, everybody is ringing now my doorbell. And I thought, how the hell does he know that I've got all these perps coming to my door, ringing my doorbell? Because that's true, it happens. And then Siegfried Thomas, who speaks Swiss German so much better than me, he said, he translated, it was a bit like South Park, you know, it's like, what did Kenny just say? And then Siegfried Thomas saw, I don't understand. He said, what he's saying is that everybody is calling them on the phone. I said, what? And he said, yes, you know, and now after you sent the letters, everybody is calling us on the phone. And I thought, well, that is really big news, because what it means, no one would be spending, you know, days later and weeks later calling the police station just because they got a letter, you know. No, what these people are calling them about is the attacks on them. And now they say, oh, hang on, this is what's going on in the neighborhood. This is why, you know, this is why we have all these symptoms. This is why we have all these pains. This is why we have the feeling that people keep breaking into our home. You know?
Catherine, that's absolutely fantastic that the neighbors are taking action. And you know, the thing that's great about your letter campaign is you actually spelled out how the radiation going through people's walls actually is going to hit them as well. And they are going to come up with weird health symptoms. You know, this is why they've become suddenly arthritic, and this is why they've got heart pains, and this is why they're getting migraines, and they're getting fatter because their hormones are being affected. you know?
Exactly. And also I more and more suspect that when pulsed shots are ripping through your body, that the cell tissue or the cell walls are being damaged, because something is happening that people start retaining a lot of water, and I think there's some sort of cell damage, cell wall damage happening. And I can certainly feel the shots ripping through, and they have tortured me the last couple of days with swelling my legs artificially. So they can do that, but they seem to be machine gunning into people's legs. So if you have odd swelling, you know, swelling where you feel like, oh my God, and don't mean you, Ramon, I mean the listeners, you know, where you feel like, oh my goodness, the skin is so tight, it feels like the skin is bursting, then you're most likely the victim of a directed energy weapon attack.
I'm sure. And you know, the other things that people report these days are short-term memory loss. Everybody's got dementia and Parkinson's, you know, at the age of 20 and 30 and 8 years old. And as you know, a kid in my neighborhood recently has been diagnosed with short-term memory loss. We're talking about 11-year-old. So there's brain damage being, you know, instituted over here on a large scale. Plus fibromyalgia. How often have you heard that? You know, people suddenly developing pains all over their bodies. Really? It's pains all over your bodies? And what are they connected with? Your nervous system? No, they're connected with these tiny little weapons that anybody can use, you know, and that you wouldn't see, because we're talking about invisible radiation and spectrum weapons.
Yeah, and the other thing that really opened my eyes is so for those people who are new to this, I'm sitting in a metal shed and I'm surrounded by metal. And I'm not just surrounded by metal, I am surrounded by reinforced metal. So there's a metal shed and there are extra layers of aluminium and steel, okay? And I've bought now all the metal panels of 2 DIY stores, and I have to keep going to new stores in the same chain because they can't get the supply in as fast as I'm buying it, just to try to protect myself. This is actually true, right? I've literally bought their supply of, you know, metal panels.
Catherine, I have to say that's a very elegant solution, a shed. I don't know if they have metal sheds over here in the US. I do recall looking for them at some point. I was looking for everything, you know, even metal lockers, metal coffins to sleep in. Literally, it's that bad. But as you know, some of these weapons, they do, perhaps they're using scalar wave tech, because they do penetrate certain layers, certain amounts of layers. So this is possibly why you're also reinforcing.
This is exactly the point I wanted to get to, is that one of the things I discovered, as I can now absolutely prove that this is military technology and this is exotic physics, because there shouldn't be anything that I know that can punch through and cause the types of effects, like literally audible loud impact and actual dents into alufoil when you're surrounded by metal, and you know, when you're sitting on the other side of a wall. So in particle physics, you could cause this sort of effect with a particle beam, but the particle beam would have to travel in vacuum. Okay, so if you took, for example, the Large Hadron Collider, and you know, you somehow managed to put your hand into the beam, well, yeah, you would get this sort of attack, but you could never put your hand into the beam, because to maintain the vacuum and even, you know, contain the beam, we have to have a almost near perfect vacuum, because as soon as these electrons at that energy hit a single molecule of air, they scatter everywhere. So in other words, in the type of physics I know, as soon as you have a wall and you've got several, you know, bits of metal, you should be protected. Nothing should be able to create this sort of effect. So the fact that I can measure it, and I'm going to upload a video tonight about me filming how I'm going to bed for 3 hours. I'm sleeping for 3 hours, and you can hear the impact nonstop, the actual patter of shots against the shielding inside the shielded metal shed. Now, the reason why I'm really making a big thing out of this is the following. If you have this sort of effect after, you know, 3 or 4 layers of metal, if you don't have 3 or 4 layers of metal and you just have a concrete wall, it will go through it like butter. So it means it will go through several walls, 2, 3, 4 walls. So if anywhere in your neighborhood somebody's firing these weapons, they might go through 2 buildings and hit you, or hit your baby, or hit your children. And when you have all these gang stalkers firing these weapons, what you have is this background, like a machine gunning scatter background, that is hitting pretty much everybody, non-stop, 24/7.
And I think it's important that you stress things like that, Catherine, as you just said. They can hit your babies. They can hit your babies sleeping in their cribs or cradles or beds or whatever. They can hit toddlers. They can hit 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds. They can hit 7-year-olds. They can hit your children. They can hit your parents. They can hit your elderly parents and make them worse while they're trying to recover from various ailments or surgeries or whatever.
And in fact, Ramol, a good job you emphasize that, because we have evidence that it's not just that they can hit the baby. They specifically aim for the babies and the elderly because they want to kill them off. So if you're in the wage earning slave age, what it means is that you're so productive to the cartel. As soon as you become a pensioner, you would be drawing a pension that they have stolen a long time ago. So they want you dead. If you're a toddler, well, they try to control the population. So they want to kill all the children. They want to kill it off to control the population size. So unless you're, earning a big buck, and I don't know, if you're a contract killer for the crime cartel, you're probably safe, up to a point until they want to get rid of you too. But unless you're a contract killer for the crime cartel, you are totally disposable. If you're a child or a baby, you're an active target because of the genocide program. And if you're elderly, forget it. You might as well just snuff it today. That's basically it.
Yeah, and also we shouldn't forget that they're using neurotech, So this is why, I don't know, I was recently writing, I haven't finished this little Twitter facto fiction marathon that I started. I don't know if you saw some of my tweets, but I kind of riffed on that lone wolf terrorist, domestic terrorist man there. And I'm having a lot of fun, but I'm also putting out the actuality of what's going on. It's obviously under using the vehicle of fiction, the thin vehicle of fiction. It's facto fiction. But, one of the things that I said there was, and that I think it's important to remind ourselves of, is the neurotech currently has advanced to such a point where literally it's like point and shoot. They can neurotech babies to scream. They can neurotech children to scream. And they are indeed doing that. If you've ever traveled on a plane recently, you might have noticed that there are sudden bursts of extreme sound, chaos, eruptions. And I submit that these are completely contrived with neurotechnology that's being aimed at people. So if there's a target on a plane and they're unable to hit that target continuously for whatever purpose, whatever reason, whether it's shielding or this person has moved or whatever, they start hitting everybody around, and they especially hit the babies and make them scream. So for those of you who think that this is, sci-fi, hi-fi, beyond the conception of possibility, etc., you need to go to James Giordano's videos online on YouTube and just check them out. And one of them I will indeed play little bits of a little bit later, called From Bench to Battlefield, Brain Science from Bench to Battlefield. And he literally, this is a guy who's working very much inside the military, inside the intelligence agencies, is perfectly aware that people are being targeted, people are being experimented on, and people are being assaulted with neurotech. He speaks openly about this neurotech, but he speaks about it from the point of view of a top military strategist, who, by the way, is also a quote-unquote neuroethicist, which is totally a case of the fox guarding the henhouse. When military neuroweapon designers and makers, when military neuroscientists come along and tell the rest of us that they are neuroethicists, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to relegate you to the back of the room and, listen to all of the other people who are true ethicists and true human rights advocates first before I listen to you. Because clearly this is an attempt to totally take over the field, to say, oh yes, we neuroethicists are looking at it. We're examining all of this very closely. The brain is now completely malleable, completely open, completely accessible, but we neuroethicists are here to make sure that humanity is safe, everything is being done for the public good, for the moral good, public health. Surveillance is actually public health, and that indeed is something he says in his video, in his little talk that he gave at Lawrence Livermore National Labs last year, a video that's been circulating among many of us, thanks to Dr. Ed Spencer finding it, while he was sitting in a hospital bed himself and sending it out to other people. So,
Could you bring it up on your screen just
right
so
now? Okay, sure. Let me.
I haven't seen it yet because I was busy, so I missed out on all this correspondence. And I think you gave me a brief description, and from what I've heard, it is just a mind-blowing interview.
It is.
Has Millicent reappeared?
Okay, here it is. This is the video. Oh, and it's open at this slide, as you can tell, which talks about how these neuroweapons are being used.
Just a second, because all I see is your browser and I think a previous version of the Techno Forum. No, it's number 70. I see number 70, but I just see still images.
Okay, they are very slowly showing it to you, I think, because that's where I started. Now I'm looking at this screen with the slide. You're not there yet?
No, it's not. On my end, it's not showing yet. Okay. I can see. I can check if I can see it on the. No, in the YouTube video, it's also not showing yet. It's not showing yet. Well, I'll let you know as soon as it's
not yet. Okay, because it's showing over here at my end. Let me see if I can close some other windows. Maybe that will help.
Yeah, maybe close the one which just has restore session in the Techno Crime Fighters current episode. That seems to be a browser with just 2 tabs.
I did close it. That's still showing at your end?
Yeah. Alternatively, stop sharing your screen and restart sharing the screen. Maybe it's...
oh, that's a good idea. Okay, let me do that.
This very much looks like a hack to me.
Yeah. All right. I've stopped at this point. Let me just close the other windows and then go back to sharing.
Because one of the things I wanted to say about this guy is that we have to remember that when you're dealing with people in the military or the secret services, like Gina Haspel, the way the selection process works is by the time you reach these people near or at the top, it's almost psychopathy pure. So when you're dealing with these sadistic psychopaths, one of their key traits is pathological lying. So they actually make a sport out of pathological lying. So when he presents himself as a neuroethicist, well, this is an example of pathological lying. And what he actually is a Nazi psychopath preparing to brain mutilate children so that his own offspring can look better while everybody else is brain mutilated. And we are talking about babies being brain mutilated in the cribs, okay, in your own home. And you have no control over it because as soon as you give birth, you register your baby, the government, which is now in deep capture with the organized crime cartel, knows that there's a baby. If the baby makes it through to school, it will be put through an IQ test, like happened to me. I didn't even know what an IQ test was. And then they will farm the babies and they will decide, do we want this baby to stay at a very high IQ or do we want to decrease the IQ? Do we want to brain mutilate the baby and damage its brain forever? The parents would never know what happened.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot more than that as well. They are over here in the US, I think it was last year, it was September 2015. Barack Obama approved, he issued, I guess those guys issue these executive orders. He issued an executive order permitting PSYOPs on the populace. It was basically called behavioral science research, to permit people to function better in society, to help them in so many ways when they're sick, to nudge them toward the right treatment, etc. So basically, he approved PSYOPs. He approved COINTELPRO under the aegis of behavioral science research. And as a result of that, not merely now are people being neuroattacked to brain damage them, people are being swarmed. So that suddenly, if you have a very bright kid, and I say this, having a very bright kid, and I'm just noticing the shenanigans around myself and around her. You have a very bright kid. You suddenly start getting suggestions from people around, from the dog sitter, from the babysitter, from the teacher, from the mail lady, anybody you speak to. Oh, your daughter does such lovely art. Do you think she should take some art lessons? Can you push her in the direction of art instead of math or writing or anything to do with cognition? Well, not that art isn't, but it's a little safer than having this kid think on her feet and speak her mind. So that kind of thing is also going on, this kind of nudge behavior. So all these psyops in connection and conjunction with the neuroteching, this is total social takeover. That is really what's going on. And if you want, I can try to share my screen again at this point.
We absolutely have to see this, because I think that guy is actually one of the criminals we need to. Yes, now I can see the slide.
Okay, so here's the slide. And what this slide is talking about is the 3 modalities of assaulting the brain. First, you assess somebody's brain potential. Then you access their brain with various technologies. And then you target the brain. Literally, you damage the brain. So let me just play a little bit of this clip and you can hear him talking.
Actually, just a second, because I can't hear it. Can you maybe increase your volume to the maximum?
Yeah, I did.
Maybe your speaker volume, because I think your Oh, I know why. Because you're having headphones. If you pull out the headphones, I think it has to go out of the speakers and back into the microphone.
Remove the headphones?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and then let the speakers actually just blare it out. Yes, now I can hear it.
Better?
Yeah. Hang on, now I stopped being able to hear it.
Oh, really?
There's something going on, because no, we can't hear it.
You can't hear it anymore.
No, but you know what? I'm going to bring it up. Sorry, maybe it's
okay. Why don't you bring it up? Here, let me
because
send you the link.
let's just so you type James Giordano.
You'll get it right on top. It's Bench to Battlefield.
Hang on, Bench to Battlefield. Ah, yes, I see it. Yes.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, so why don't I stop sharing?
And let's see, maybe it works on my end.
Yeah.
Because we have to, I encourage everybody to have a good look at this man who I already up over. Hang on, this guy. I already up over say that he's very likely a clinical psychopath. Let's just, I think you were at 16 minutes or something. Yes.
Yeah, this is a very vital video for everybody to watch.
Pulse signal,
can you hear us?
not only to be able to image certain brain areas, but also to image tracts, communicating networks and nodes within the brain in a directional way in rather rapid time. I can utilize neurophysiological recordings such as electroencephalography, and I've dialed in the specificity of that as well through the use of quantitative technique.
This guy's a neuroscientist, but he's a military neuroscientist.
Taking a look at genetic profiles of individuals and groups to be able to determine what genes may be, in fact, coding for certain structures and functions of the brain. I can utilize proteomics and other forms of biomarkers, and I can utilize neurocyber informatics. In other words, I can harness all of these forms of assessments to a big data approach that allow me to make both comparatives and normative indices, not only within an individual, but between individuals, not only between individuals, but within and between groups on a variety of scales. So the idea of assessment technology, in many ways, combines each and all of these, and the combinatory power of that is facilitated and fortified through the use of big data. We've written comprehensively about the use of big data as a force multiplier in neuroscience and neuroweaponology. And if you're interested, I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Neuroweaponology. Let's just stop here. Neuroweaponology. And already here, I can link this to many, many things. Number one, he's talking about identifying genetics. Guys, if you know anything about the crime cartel, what this means is you have certain crime mafia families with their bloodlines. The Rothschilds being one of them, okay? Now, these guys take, even if they just, happen to shag a random woman, they just take the children and they try to plant them into public life, okay? All their legitimate and illegitimate children will just appear somewhere. So what these people are talking about is the crime cartel wants to preserve their genetics and they want to exterminate yours.
Absolutely.
So unless you're part of those 13 bloodlines, you're screwed, okay? They want to exterminate you and they want to brain mutilate you. Now, the brain mutilation is already happening to me. And I'm so glad. I mean, actually, this guy, it's wonderful he went public with his talk because he just earned himself an entry ticket for the biggest court cases for crimes against humanity. And he is on my list. as one of the main suspects because he works exactly to the T on what is being done to targets. So I think he's one of the war criminals actually actively data farming targets, because he would be a fool not to. He's in the military, he's got classification to cover his ass, and he works right on this stuff, and apparently he wants to be top dog in the field.
Yes, and he actually admits that indeed this stuff is being tested. It's being used on people. You know, he actually openly says it. There's huge amounts of disclosure in this. He's a very smooth talker, as you can tell. He doesn't stop talking. And the whole intention and modality in which this presentation is being made suggests to me that what they are doing is attempting to gain consent from humanity, from Americans, from people watching this. You know, gain consent by shutting up and saying nothing. Now, this was actually reported. This is from August 2017. It was reported very minimally in the press. I looked up an article in The Independent about it. And, you know, my God, it's as if, you know, it's as if a troglodyte who can't write English wrote it. It's not as if a journalist wrote it. Now, if a journalist would actually write a report on this video, as I am going to do shortly, you would have to not merely report what he said, but examine the implications of what he is saying. None of this was covered. It was very briefly summarized. A couple of things and a couple of conferences that he mentioned were pointed to, and that's about it. You can look up the article. It's in The Independent.
You know, I would say, first of all, we now know, you know, that the newspapers are owned by the crime cartel. So these days, when you have mainstream media, the person writing the article is not a journalist anymore. He's either a Secret Service agent, an Operation Mockingbird plant, or he is an all-out, you know, honest member of the organized crime cartel. You know, the article was written either by a bloody agent or criminal. You know, which is really, I mean, you know, saying the same thing. But
so in other words, they were glossing it over. So they put this out there. He actually has this conversation. This talk was given at Lawrence Livermore. There were students there. There were professors there. There were people from various fields there in that room. Okay, but it was also military research. And I think Lawrence Livermore is obviously, you know, it's got lots of contracts, military and intelligence contracts. So the forum in which this talk was given was a military intelligence and an academic forum. And as soon as this talk was given, it's not remarked upon by the fourth estate, by the press, you know.
So this is shocking. So I would say, you know, you are going to write a press article, Ramola, because you're a journalist. Yes. I'm a scientist and a criminal investigator, and I will do what I will do, which is include this in the upcoming court cases as lead evidence for war criminality and war crimes in action, here being openly confessed to by this guy. I already have a stack of researchers that are in for it, including a British scientist who's giving a talk about neuroscience and is referring to 500,000 what's it called, like genetic samples and blood samples taken from people. Sorry, 500,000 exactly. And as I was listening to the talk, I was thinking, hey, my friend, you show me 500,000 consent forms you have collected. Show me 500,000. That's a lot of paper, my friend, to collect 500,000 consent forms. And I put my money on the fact you haven't got it. So you took blood samples from people on the NHS without ever asking them, or by giving them some generic, acceptance form of, well, you know, the NHS might use your data, and you think, okay, they're using it because they have to get the computer.
That's right. And in fact, Catherine, I think that is exactly what they are doing. They're doing it sneakily. So when you go to give blood for a test at the local hospital, for whatever reason, you know, they sit you down, and guess what? They don't take one vial. They don't take 2 vials. They take 3 vials.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And this genetic business is a very, very, very important. Okay, so I want to show you something that is directly relevant to this. But first of all, I want to show everybody, okay, guys, if you're a victim, what you're going to do is the following. You're going to look up, you know, this guy, James Giordano, and you're going to look for bench to battlefield. Then you're going to double click the URL, control copy. You're going to open a tab. You're going to type clipconverter.cc. Okay, you're going to paste the URL here, and you're going to download this little thing. because this is going to be key evidence. Sorry, this is adverts.
Yeah, please download this video, preserve this video before it's removed. Yeah.
And you're burning it onto CD, and you'll be quoting this in your court cases, because this brain mutilation, which is what it actually is, that he's talking about, this is what's being done to you. So I wanted to report today that they have shot me in the head so much. I've got now difficulties with coordination, with balance. They've also shot into my inner ear to damage my balance. And this is exactly what's going to be done to you, to your children as well at school, where you don't have any control over it. Okay.
And I should also point out that one of the things he's talking about is dual-use technologies. Now, if everybody saw that article on Robert David Steele's website yesterday, the Mongoose article about non-lethal weapons, which posts something from 1993.
Can you share your screen? That's because people understand. People have to see what that is.
Yeah, I should pull it up. Let me pull it up. And but if you look at that article, you will find that somebody, an alert reader supposedly, has stated that acoustic technology is putting voices into people's skulls. Actually, what does it really say? Oh, I've got the page. Okay, let me share the screen right now. And you can see what I can see. Hopefully. Do you see it? So non-lethal directed energy acoustic weapons in the USA, words in your head, words in your mouth, the ultimate false flag scripting. So I do request that people read this article and make comments. I don't know if you can make comments on this website, but perhaps you can, post your comments online somewhere. So this particular article talks about a few things. And one of the things it talks about is V2K. Okay, it talks about 2 documents that have been released, and I'll talk about them in just a minute. But I took exception to one statement over here that really, where is that statement? Has it been removed? Oh, no, here it is. Okay. So basically, if you look right at the top, this is the technology being released in current use in 1992 timeframe. What's now used is incredibly advanced, best described as remote induction, soft style, no voices heard, but attitudes shaped. So basically, they're talking about synthetic telepathy that's putting subliminal messaging into people's heads very slowly and subtly, except for controlled experiments like the DNC demonstrations of college students whose leaders are paid and the followers are targeted with mass soft remote induction. Now, the person who has written this says, a remote soft induction is now the norm, but voice to skull is periodically tested and deployed to see how effective its capabilities can be in selected unstable or mentally ill targets. Now, I do know that people who are watching this, who are perfectly aware of what voice to skull is, and some of whom are indeed reporting that it's being used on them, will know that this is not exactly true. Voice to skull is currently being deployed and tested not on mentally ill people, but on perfectly well, perfectly mentally healthy people, in fact, who are highly accomplished, most usually, high IQ targets, people who are highly productive, highly vocal, just smart, strong people in our communities. Voice to skull is being used on people like that. Why? Because it's being used as a neuro weapon to suppress, assault, abuse them internally and mentally with voices, sounds, and abusive scripts. We've all heard and know about the abusive scripts used in voice to skull. And in fact, Dr. Robert Duncan recently spoke about this on Facebook in a series of posts that someone captured and which I will put on Twitter shortly. I know it's taken me a little while, but I'll get there. I'll put those posts out. But basically, he talks about the same kind of thing that's in his books and that, has been spoken about ad infinitum. Voice to skull is being used as a neuro weapon to terrorize, threaten, intimidate, put down, deprecate, dismiss, decry, and really annoy and assault people nonstop. as well as abuse. I mean, that's nothing but abuse. It's a verbal neuro abuse, nonstop verbal neuro abuse that goes on. So that's how voice to skull is being used. It's not being used on selected unstable or mentally ill targets. Who is this alert reader, I wonder? Now I don't think we're going to be able to find out who exactly wrote this comment unless this person identifies himself or herself. But I can state unequivocally that this is not exactly true. That this voice to skull is being used on mentally well people and not mentally ill people. In fact, it's, as we know, hearing voices is still being seen by psychiatrists as a sign of schizophrenia and delusions and hallucinations, etc. So it's being used to project the symptomology of mental illness, if anything.
Sorry.
That's all right. The other thing I just wanted to say was, 1993 non-lethal Los Alamos conference agenda that's posted over here. It is very interesting for people who haven't seen it before. Take a look at this PDF because it talks about what these guys, military and intelligence guys, got together in 93, I think at Los Alamos. It was at Los Alamos, to talk about. And they talked about, if you look closely, the biological challenges, non-lethal research, fracture and dynamic behavior, biotech and structural ceramics. Actually, let me go down to the next page. That's more. There we go. You'll see who's involved as well, right? And you'll see Dr. John Alexander talking about non-lethal defense technology, peacekeeping and peace enforcement operations. Now, this is what I actually started off to say before I got into this, and that was what they did in 94 was a memorandum of understanding was drawn between the DoD and the DOJ, talking about joint development of classified non-lethal dual-use technologies. And this dual-use, what it really means is dual-use both by the local police, right, for law enforcement purposes, supposedly, and by the defense for defense purposes, or really assault weapon purposes, is what it really means. Now, this term peace enforcement is, as you can tell, very eyebrow-raising, is it not? Peace enforcement? How do you enforce the peace? Perhaps with non-lethal weapons, hitting people, giving them arthritis so they can't move, hitting their vocal cords so they can't speak, hitting their brains so they have strokes. So the way this is being rolled out is incredibly sinister. And every educated person on the planet needs to wake up, start looking into this, and start taking action and start speaking out. Are we going to let the entire surveillance, defense, military apparatus simply take over this field and say that it's perfectly okay to hit people from a remove at a distance with radiation and sonic weapons, call it non-lethal, call it peace enforcement, peacekeeping, and get away with it? Because that's really what this is all about, And the other terms, of course, are less than lethal. You can see, what have I done? As you can see going down over there.
This is great. I've got already a list of things that I would like to flag. If you could just scroll back up to the pictures of these researchers with Edward Teller there and all these other guys. Yes, stop there. Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Look at the middle image and ask yourself, in such a document, why is the middle guy shown with a satanic pentagram in the image?
Excellent point. Yeah. We're talking about the dark side of the military here. We're talking about the Satanists in the military running these non-lethal weapons. Non-lethal weapons equations Satanism. I think we can conclude that.
And look at the image at the bottom. Well, certainly on this photocopy, it looks like a devil's head, And if you go through, at first it seems coincidence, but as you're reading more and more cartel documents, they are openly gloating about being satanic, being devils, being into murdering and maiming and mutilating. And Satanism is just a fetishization of psychopathy. So these people, these men, and this is why I see all these men, because psychopathy is much more, prevalent in men than women.
And the Honorable Janet Reno, let us not forget, because she was the Attorney General of the United States. She was in a highly power position, a huge power position.
Yeah.
And she was able to roll these weapons out.
Exactly. They are psychopathic women as well. See Gina Haspel. But in this document, so this is already, worth a lot. But my question could you go back to the main website? Because this is a great document to have. I agree. This is wonderful.
So anyway, that talks about a lot of the technologies, that they were actually looking at, optical, acoustic, etc. So that's definitely worth looking at. And then, of course, there are these letters from Julianne McKinney, who was, let's see, the person who founded the electronic. Oh, have I come back to the same one? No, actually, no. Let me go further down because I think, here we go. There we go. So she was the founder of this Electronic Surveillance Project Association of National Security Alumni. And this is a letter that she's written to Janet Reno about the death of somebody, and it's a kind of a complicated story. So it's worth reading to find out what that's all about. But she does spell out that she's looking for permission to attend this conference to ensure that the fate of human and civil rights in this country are not ultimately decided by a second Wannsee conference. And I don't know the reference there entirely, but it sounds like another fake conference from the past.
Actually, if you go back up, it's Wannsee conference. That was in Germany. Wasn't that the Nazi conference where they decided to just basically take over the entire planet because there was
Okay, maybe that's it. Yeah.
I'm asking for permission to attend this upcoming event to ensure that the fate of human and civil rights in this country are not ultimately decided by a second Wannsee conference. So I think the Wannsee conference, I haven't got it in my memory banks right now, which exact conference that was, but I think I remember that Christopher Story, AKA Edward Howe, was talking about that. And then I think it was at the Wannsee conference that all these Nazi leaders decided that they are going to take over planet Earth and they're going to
see.
The entire.
Yeah, it does sound like a second Wannsee conference then, because they decided to take it over neuroweapon-wise. But according to what James Giordano says in that other video from August 2017, they're actually meeting regularly. They are having, he mentioned a European conference on dual-use technologies. Yeah. So I think dual-use technologies, the dual use is a very, giving away a lot kind of keyword. It's because it's pointing to what they're doing.
Oh wait, don't
how they're hiding it.
Yeah, don't close it yet. Don't close it yet. I saw you hover over the close button. Exactly. This is fantastic to bring it up, and this is a great, absolutely great document to have. And we should download it before it disappears and put it in our court cases. But just go back to the website of.
Let me do that.
I just have a few comments to make. This is an article that just came out, literally hot off the press yesterday, okay? And this is about, the prevalence of neurotechnology in voice to skull. And I'm sorry, if you go back up to the sentence about the mentally ill people, by the way, that smiling guy on the right, Robert David Steele, is the founder of the site. So we can hold him responsible for the appears on here. And there's the sentence, remote soft induction is now the norm. Remote soft induction, what exactly is that? It is, the organized crime cartel brain fucking you guys, okay? Everywhere. Wherever you go, you don't even notice. You're being brain mutilated and your brain state is being changed by a bunch of child raping, psychopathic degenerates. That's what it means. And that's apparently the norm,
And this is frequently referred to as mind control technologies, etc. And those of you who've studied HARP and studied ELFs, etc., understand how they are doing it. Because we are talking about extremely low frequencies. The brain transmits and receives at extremely low frequencies.
And exactly. And now, if you consider, this is now Robert David Steele, as far as I'm aware, is a previous, he's an ex-CIA covert ops guy. Okay, so there's this CIA covert ops guy who should really know the ins and outs of all this stuff. Okay, and in the olden days, at least officially on paper, the CIA used to at least pretend it's trying to protect American citizens in some form or another. But I think it has done away with that now, for a long time. But anyway, then this guy is smearing what's happening, that is on his website. There is some sort of, unsubstantiated claim that voice to skull is periodically tested and deployed to see how effective its capabilities can be in selected, unstable or mentally ill targets. What he says is that if you have voice to skull, you must be one of these specially selected, unstable or mentally ill targets. And then you have his grinning face on the right-hand side. By the way, Robert David Steele knows exactly what's going on because we were trying to inform him for a very long time. Okay.
Yeah, so I have to say in his defense, though, as you know, Catherine, I contacted him yesterday and we had a bit of an exchange, and a few of us were privy to a few back and forths over there. One of the things that Robert David Steele did indeed tell me is that he's open to publishing articles from me on his website.
Hallelujah.
And that this, you know, he has actually published a couple articles from me before. One was the Rohini Besacer article, you know, the big one about when she was, you know, first convicted, etc. And the other is, you know, because Rohini Besacer, if people don't know, is a living Manchurian candidate, in my estimation and the estimation of various others, and in her own estimation, because she has talked about being brain chipped and doing things that were not herself, that she stabbed somebody and apparently this other woman died. And now she's in jail for life and her court dates keep getting shifted year after year. So, you know, extraordinary case from Toronto, and I wrote about it. I also wrote an article on neurohacking, one of the Rohini Besacer follow-up articles that he published, I think. So he did suggest to me that he's open to publishing other articles over here. And my hope is, as you know, I continue to write on this subject and publish on this subject. My hope is that I can send him links to some of my articles and he will continue to publish them, particularly one to combat this one, because I don't think this is the truth. And, you know, this is why I wrote to him last night in the first place. This is not the truth about V2K, right? I mean,
this is outrageous. I'm so glad you wrote to him, but this is absolutely egregious. But I just don't buy the fact that after, you know, all this time, you know, we have to educate the CIA special ops guy. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows absolutely exactly what's going on. And that's why I was so absolutely furious. And by the way, we're not even talking about his imitable style that, you know, reminded me strongly of Dr. Robert Duncan. But anyway, you know, sociopath aside, you know, one of the questions I have to this guy is, okay, now, you know, now in 2018, an article appears on this where he's smearing the V2K victims. Okay, well, I can show him people from public life who get V2K. I can show him x-rays where you can see the military technology, you know, actually implanted in people's heads that's transmitting the voices. And then this rubbish appears on his website. But my question to Robert David Steele is, in 2018, he just has 2 documents from 93. That's 25 years ago, Robert. Actually, 2 documents for 25 years ago.
Yes, but you see, that's very CIA style, and I suspect that's what the CIA is hoping to do again. What they're hoping to do again is first torment, torture, and assault thousands, if not millions of people with V2K, with various kinds of neurotech, and then 20 years down the road, come along and say, oh yeah, there were some experiments. We tortured some folk, you know, and think they can get away with it. And, oh, maybe there'll be another Richard Helms to say, oh, 20,000, you know, pages of files were shredded by mistake. Or like Gina Haspel, you know, 90 videos were just thrown in the bin by mistake. We simply can't find them. So that's their style. That's what they do. You know, very interestingly, in one of my conversations with Barbara Hartwell, the most recent one, I think, and, you know, she's ex-CIA, she's a CIA whistleblower. She said that she did not believe for 1 minute that the MK Ultra files had disappeared. She said that's the cover story. They most definitely have the files, she says. You know, to me, that's really interesting.
By the way, we can prove that that's the case. We can absolutely prove that that's the case. And I will prove that to everybody convincingly in the next couple of minutes. But before we move on to MK Ultra, I just would like to point out something that, you know, that was pointed out to us yesterday by one of our trusted friends, and it even escaped, not even, I mean, it just escaped my attention, okay, and I felt like a right fool when he pointed it out. But look at the URL. It says https and then / phi beta iota.net. And this guy said to us, well, I do remember my ancient Greek, and phi beta iota stands for FBI. So we've got FBI.net saying that, you know, everybody who gets voice to skull is a selected target who is mentally unstable. Well, you know, go and boil your head, Robert David Steele. You know, literally, that's what I have to say. This is shocking. This is criminal disinformation. We've got crimes against humanity happening. Disabled people, children, and elderly people are being tortured to death with the voice-to-skull military technology, with these bone conduction and ear implants being blasted into their heads all the way to their deathbed. And then we've got the CIA specials ops guy running an FBI.net website saying that all these people are selected because they're mentally unstable. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it seems like, the CIA, the FBI, they have so many weird covers. They have so many weird compartments. They keep things from each other. There's infighting. They're fighting with each other, or they're working together. You really can't tell, So there's all sorts of weird mayhem going on. It's very hard to tell what's going on. One of the things that I thought for this particular website and for Robert David Steele, asking, for instance, for my articles, or being open to publishing some articles, which unfortunately putting out disinfo, is the speculation that because of compartmentalization and because of their oaths of secrecy, etc., they cannot come right out and say, yes, we know this is happening.
Oh, but you know what?
But we prefer somebody like you say that it's happening.
Yeah,
from your limited knowledge, completely outside the intel agent.
I can actually, blow. I know what you're doing here, and this is actually very good that you do it like that. But I can actually blow that argument out of the water for two reasons. Because he knows what's going on, and we can prove that he knows what's going on because he was included on the emails exchanges where we're discussing these things. So that's from behind the scenes. We know that he knows what's going on. But if he was scared to speak outright, he would not put out active disinfo that smears, again, victims of crimes against humanity with the old, CIA, dumb as F nonsense of, oh, they are mentally unstable. He actively damages people's reputation. This is libel. This guy put it into writing. And this thing of, oh, an alert reader and not even identifying it. Oh, come on, Robert. You wrote that. There was no alert reader. That's why there's no name attached or some sort of further details. You wrote that, Robert. I suspect you to, satisfy your employer, the FBI or the CIA or whoever that is these days. So this is absolute nonsense. The other thing is, if you scroll back up and look at his logo, just look at the logo. Everybody who studies cartel signaling, that, right there, you've got again the cross.
The cross of Malta?
Yes. There are several incarnations of the Maltese cross and this and that cross, but basically it's always the same Swiss cross, because that's what all this is coming from. It's the Vatican Intel's, military arm. And then when you zoom into that logo, I think there's a dagger, a feather, and the shovel. I think the shovel is, digging yourself in deep. That's what you just did, Robert. But, what's the dagger? I think this is what this spells out, that logo. This is Black Ops. The dagger is on the left-hand side, the feather on the right-hand side, a ring at the top. Oh, yes, a ring of Black Ops guys digging themselves in. That's what it reads to me, this logo here. I mean, this is shocking. Shocking. And sorry, you haven't worked in the CIA all your life and you don't know cartel signaling, and it's someone like me who has to tell you? I don't think so, Robert. I mean, this is getting a, dislike from me.
Totally. Yeah, well, I don't know. This whole thing, the whole U.S. ink, the flag, etc.
And let's not forget that. Let's not forget Robert David Steele. I just uncovered last week how he was the guy putting forward the soft landing approach while his mates in the CIA, should they ever be cut from the governmental funds, which is earning them a big fat paycheck, should they ever be cut from that, either as a government employee or even as a contractor, they should get a year's worth of salary when they get made redundant. So whoever says something like that, who on planet Earth gets 1 year's pay when they get the sack for having done not just an atrocious job, but having actually committed crimes against humanity? It's a mafia. A mafia operates like that. And there's him advocating mafia practices to all of us.
Yes, but unfortunately, it's okay. I really don't know how to resolve this in terms of, how we address it. What I can only say is that we continue putting out the truth, and that's something we are not compromising on ever. We are never going to soft pedal. We are never going to cover up the truth, We're never going to be publishing these lying articles that put out disinfo. We are never going to do that. Other people may do it, but we are never going to do it.
Yeah, people, if you want to know the truth, you go to everydayconcerned.net. Not phi beta iota.net, no, everydayconcerned.net. That's Ramola's website. She's been reporting for 3 years about the full truth and nothing but the truth. Please go there and educate yourself about how your children are going to be not just brain mutilated, but they're also going to be put under radio hypnosis and maybe even raped at school and farmed out to politicians who want to, get at fresh meat. Because this is what seems to be happening in Columbia, Tennessee. As Millicent uncovered. So this is the truth, guys. This is what's actually happening. And you only find it on Ramola's website, not on Robert David Steele's, Mad Hats. I don't know. I don't even want to call them articles.
Well, so in any case, to come back to that issue that we were talking about, just to go back very briefly to James Giordano's, what was talked about on Rob David Steele's website and what is being talked about by James Giordano are these dual-use technologies, which are, in a sense, justifying what the DoD is doing, what the DOJ is doing. Now, when you say DOJ, remember, we're talking about police departments, we're talking about the FBI, and we're talking about DHS, because today we've got the Department of Homeland Security, and they're all working hand in hand through the fusion centers. So these dual-use technologies are law enforcement and apparently peace enforcement technologies that people like James Giordano are touting. Now, he's got some other really juicy graphs, slides over here. Let me see if I can find another one. Oh, yeah, this is some very, okay, here, maybe Catherine would like to comment on this.
Oh, hang on a second, because on your end, we can't hear it. Just tell me the minute mark.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then people can hear it. I'll bring it up.
Oh, wait. This one's a good one.
Okay, just let me know which minute.
This is 1317, I think. I saw this one at the soft weapons.
Okay, hang on. Let's listen all to 1317. And everybody who's listening, make notes, because this is important for court cases. Okay, I'm playing it now. I hope you can hear it.
Both dimensions, soft weaponizability and hard weaponizability. In the former sense, we're seeing that the neurosciences can be used to gain economic leverage, not least of which is because neuroscience and technology commands and captures $175 billion with a B dollar annual market space. There's a tremendous amount of global economic leverage that can be occurred and affected, but can also be used for somewhat softer applications in the national security space, inclusive of intelligence purposes and the use of neuro and cognitive sciences to develop insights to and techniques for psychological operations and information systems, what is referred to in military parlance as PSYOPs and MISO.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let me stop, because this guy just blew my mind. Can I just go through this?
We have to actually take this video apart bit by bit, because there is so much massive disclosure in here.
Yes, exactly. And when we're taking this apart, Ramola, we should also sit down and immediately write the charge sheet for court, because this guy needs to be dragged to Nuremberg 2.0. What he just said when he was going on about market capitalization, which just sounds so, woody woo, oh, look at all these billions. What this psychopathic degenerate is actually saying to you is, look, we can make so much money by just selling it to gang stalkers, total scum and trolls in your neighborhood who will be buying it, brain mutilating your clever kids, and then we can really make a lot of money. And the pros will be buying the weapons because they will be on a government grant to buy those weapons. So your taxpayer money will be used to buy the weapons that are going to be brain mutilating your children. Now, he is laughing his head off because he's on the money-making side of it. You, your family, and your grandparents and your parents will be screwed and you'll be dead before 2025. That's the plan.
Yeah, and if you look, this is, I think, 31, 38. He talks about Neurent. And basically, he's talking about what you're talking about, assessment of neuropsychosocial factors and narratives, individual and group expressions and activities. So first, they assess individuals and groups, okay? And they assess narratives, and he's talking about brain narratives as well as narratives and groups, narratives and organizations, brain assessment and access approaches, and bio-tracking. We know all about that. Yeah. FMR, MEG, and brain recording applications for DECDET, whatever that is. Neuropharmacologics for affiliative enhancement. You see the language, it's so affiliative, you know. It's to convert the enemy to affiliate with you rather than be opposed to you. So this
means I think I'm just cottoning on to this. Let's just say it so slowly. Neuropharmacologics or neuropharmacologics, where the hell do I put the emphasis? It's so long. Anyway, it consists of neuro, pharma, and then logics, which means it is the study or the science of drugs for the brain, okay?
Exactly. So how can we stone you to such an extent that you will stop being a dissenter and a questioner and a critical thinker, and you start flopping over and becoming passive and compliant? And that's really what it's all about.
Exactly, because they want to enhance your affiliation with their crime cartel. And what he's actually saying, neuropharmacology, to me sounds like, well, the drugs have to cross the blood-brain barrier. So we're talking nanotech here, okay? And the best way to do it is to, to put something into your food, or into your cosmetics, or into absolutely anything, your drink, your coffee, your Starbucks coffee, and then highlight the actual neural pathways. And then when you're thinking a certain thought, to be shot in the head by the van that parks conveniently next to you. It's high precision, at millimeter precision. So on Techno, I already showed going to the shop and ending up with a bruise on my knuckle of a diameter of about 4 millimeters. That's with the accuracy with which they hit my knuckle and bruised it up. Now, with the same accuracy, they can hit an actual gland or a bit of your brain and just take out the nerve cells and brain mutilate you forever. That's what he's talking about. Is with the help of nanotech, you'll first map it, and then you will be brain mutilated.
Absolutely. And further on, he is very, indeed graphic and verbal about it. And he talks about actually using nanotech to create clumps in the brain and effectuate a stroke. And if you look right below, he's talking about cognitive alteration, brain stimulation for cognitive alteration, which is really assaulting your brain, taking over your brain cognition and cognitive processes, and converting, assaulting, altering, modifying, and changing them utterly, taking them over. And the very last one talks about devices, tiered, integrated tracking and access networks. They love their acronyms, don't they? Titan. These are Titan devices, indwelling devices for intentional identification and access, indwelling inside your brain. So you see, these brain scientists have really let their ability to manipulate the human brain go to their heads. And they have totally taken over the possibilities. And, by the way, throughout his little project here, his video, towards the end especially, he starts talking about wolves. Now, he talks about crying wolf, being poised between crying wolf and Chicken Little. In other words, either underplaying or overplaying the threat here being posed by neuroweaponry. And he says there is really a wolf here. Well, we can see that. There is most definitely a wolf here with some very sharp canines. And this wolf has been in the making for decades, and it's been experimenting on those who are targeted, wrongfully and unlawfully targeted, who are now being named mentally ill, because that's the MO. To dismiss those who are reporting being victimized in this fashion, being assaulted in this fashion, being covertly, non-consensually assaulted in this fashion, So that's also very interesting that that metaphor of the wolf is being used, but that's what he's doing. As I said, this particular video, it will make you so angry when you listen to it.
Gosh, yes, this is exactly why. First of all, I would like to thank Edward Spencer and you, Ramola, for bringing this on Techno, because I think this presentation and this man will be one of the major, people charged in Nuremberg 2.0, because on his slide, he already talks. I mean, the one that can you guys still see the one I have up now, or has it disappeared?
Oh, wait, I'm sharing my screen. Are you sharing? I'll stop sharing.
Was.
I'll stop sharing if you are.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing.
I had another slide up, but let me stop sharing and we can see yours.
No, it's okay, because as do you want to stop? Okay, yes.
Hi, Millicent. Millicent's back.
Let me just share this one slide here that it took my breath away. This is minute mark 47:20, and he's talking about, look at this, okay, trans or intracranial pulse stimulators. So transcranial means through the skull, intracranial means it's already in the skull. So what it means is brain chips, okay? It's the brain chips that all of your kiddies already had if they were born after 1986 or something, okay? If you're in the US, all the kids already have brain chips, guys. Now, what's this guy, this criminal psychopath who already knows about the brain chips, is just casually talking about is, oh yes, well, we take those intracranial pulse stimulators, those are the brain chips in children's heads, and now we're talking about neural network disruptors, as in confusion generators. So you know what, guys? If your child can't pay attention in school, that's probably why. It's already on the confusion generator, experiment that this clinical psychopath is running in his little lab. He doesn't have to be at your child's school, because he's just taking the mobile phone network to communicate with your child's brain, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing, because the child already has these brain chips.
And talking about evidence, Catherine, there is another really very interesting interview that Elon Musk gives somebody. And he talked about neural lace, and he said, oh yes, these days we can just inject it. So what can you inject but nanotech? They're injecting nanotech into people. And they're doing this obviously surreptitiously. They're calling it a tetanus vaccine, or they're calling it some other kind of vaccine. And also apparently it can be done when they draw blood through those very same syringes that are supposedly drawing blood. They can actually inject something into you. Yeah. So they're injecting this into you, and he says it goes to the brain. He's talking about neural lace. So he's talking about self-assembling nanotech that's going to create neural networks in the brain that become these intracranial pulse stimulators that can be stimulated at will.
Yeah, and look at the slide, because after the confusion generators, he says these pulse stimulators are handheld, UAV, drone, or insect-borne. So he's talking about the technology that we have seen all the gang stalkers use on us. These are handheld assault devices that pulse your head like the criminal thugs. By the way, one of them was a woman with young children. She was a member of this crime cartel, and she took out her mobile phone and pulsed my head. So this, you feel a shot that, shoots through transcranially to your brain chips. It was a handheld assault device. Now the drones we have already seen, and look at insect-borne. Insect-borne. Let's take that in. I don't know what UAV is. I'm really rubbish with acronyms.
Oh, it's one of those drones, unmanned aerial vehicle.
Yes, unmanned aerial vehicle, of course. Yes, exactly. And then look at this other thing. When they want to do neuro ops of altered reality tactics, cortically coupled neural temporal function alteration as in time warpers. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, what he's talking about is your children will go, and they'll be staring at the TV for about 8 hours, and they will be dumb as nothing, okay? Yeah. And that's it. and it will be done by DARPA and these criminal psychopaths like him. And look at it. Who the hell ever ordered this technology? Who needs?
No, and you know what's really interesting? It was kind of interesting kind of watching him maneuver the introduction of this entire conversation through the beginning parts of this video, actually. And but he finally came right out and said it. And I thought, you know, I wish I'd been a little fly in that room to watch the reactions of all the people there, because the tension that you yourself feel watching it kind of, you know, climaxes at that point when he says, well, this is being done for national security, for surveillance, for defense, intelligence, and these are very normative activities. Well, he didn't use the word normative, but that was the impression that he was trying to project, that this is perfectly okay when you look at it from the point of view of we need to defend our country, we need to surveil people, we need to have this, you know, top intelligence, and this is where intelligence is going today.
This is so sickening, because actually this guy, by the way, I've just seen there's a comment from Millicent, and I will read it out because Millicent's connection is being hacked again and she's silenced. But absolutely, so this is exactly it. And what we need to understand now is that our entire government, and certainly the entirety of the police force and the entirety of the secret services, are not owned by the people anymore. They are wholesale owned by an global organized crime cartel. So when he talks about national security, the nation he's referring to is not America and the Americans. It is the nation of the crime cartel members that stretch all the way from the US to Israel, to Tokyo, to China. It's all one. And we have a dual state of organized crime members, which include doctors, lawyers, neighbors, everything. And we've got the non-crime cartel members. And he is defending his nation of crime cartel members against you.
And that's really the point I wanted to make as well. So it's under the guise of national security. It's under the guise of surveillance and intelligence. But what really is being developed is incredible neuroweaponry to be used against the populace at large. And remember, he talks about individuals, groups, and whole populations. He's talking about the whole of society, the whole of American society, the whole of German society, the whole of Swiss society, the whole of English society, this is Brave New World. You know, this is 1984. This is Agenda 2030, Agenda 21. This is global governance. This is what he's really talking about. What we are, the kind of world that we are living in today is a world that's, you know, cartel at one hand at one level, and they are in the governments, the militaries, and the PDs and so forth, and the fusion centers. Perhaps not all the Ps and the PDs belong to them, but a lot of them do. You know, and we're talking about these Masonic networks. We're talking about a cartel kind of government layer, and then we're talking about humanity. We're talking about society, which comprises you and me.
Absolutely. And by the way, as we were speaking, I suddenly remembered I wanted to show something on the show. I hope I can find it, because, oh yes, here it is. Because when Siegfried Thomas and I, so, you know, when we're talking about which police officers and which police stations are in the crime cartel and which are not in it, it's very simple to tell. If you go there as a victim, do they ridicule you? Do they not want to hear your major victims? Then it means they are in the crime cartel. If they are shocked and they're trying to assist you, then they're not in the crime cartel. Now, I can say for sure that the police station in Unterengstringen is 100% in the crime cartel. Evidence number one, for 2.5 years, they refused to assist me. Evidence number two, I gave them evidence of break-ins into my home. I had the police officers here photographing how Intel came in and slit the wallpaper with razor blades. And after the police was here, the police station is 5 houses down. I continue to have regular break-ins, regular house breaking, pretty much every single time I leave the home, with my clothes smeared, my clothes cut up. So this means the police station is in on it. But now I can show you, I've got 2 documents here. These are the documents. So what we handed in at the police station is, this is my neighborhood campaign. And you can see, I'm not sure if you can see the stamp of Kantonspolizei Zurich. This is Kantonspolice Zurich. Sorry.
Yeah, we can see it.
And it's signed by these people, and it was a Mr. Roth and a Mr. I have to remind myself of his, I think Niffenegger was the second one. Now, that was stamped, and Siegfried Thomas also did a neighborhood campaign, and his is stamped there as well on the same date. And here's Siegfried Thomas's address, proving that we were there and that Unterengstringen police heard about it. Okay. Now, the reason why I emphasize this is, as we found out going to the police station, the neighborhood campaign is fantastically successful. People in Unterengstringen understand what this is about, and they keep calling the police station because they are probably also suffering, just as I expected.
And Catherine, before we forget, we should show your letter again, because on your website.
Yes, people can download it. Good point, because I already had a message over Twitter about a lady in Germany who's also doing a neighborhood campaign. And I wanted to say that is the best thing you can do, because people do want to know about it. So if you want to do a neighborhood campaign, go to stop007.org. Please go down to Burning Down the House of Crime here with the flame. If you click on that and you scroll down, the neighborhood campaign is the one on the right. Inform the neighbors and flyers. Okay. So here you can get all the flyers that Ramola and Karen are using here about the DHS terrorist watch list scam in the US government abuses and notice of crimes against humanity. That's very important for flyering. And then these are already neighborhood campaigns. And then there's mine with a long letter, and you can get the template in German and in English. And it contains, I think this one's the Open Office file, but down here you can see what I have sent to my neighbors. And it contains detailed diagrams of how the radiation passes through multiple walls. And it always loses 50% of intensity, which means that after 2 walls, you're still getting a quarter. Okay. And other diagrams here about how it's reflecting back at your neighbors if you're being hit at in one.
I think, Catherine, I'd like to post that on my website as well, if I may. Post your letter so people can see it. And, there's one more source on the web they can go to and just download the PDF, perhaps.
That would be great. And I also encourage everybody, if you do that and you do have a website, do what I did, which is also publish all the houses here in my region that you have informed, because then the neighbors can come here, and I'm linking my website in the letters, and they can see, oh my goodness, yes, all the neighbors know. And as soon as everybody knows that everybody else knows, it's okay to talk about it. So at first they might talk about, oh my God, have you heard what this nutter just posted? But very quickly people will switch to, hang on a second, I've got this weird back pain. Hang on. My daughter has got cancer and she's really young. Hang on. And then suddenly the hang-ons are coming. And I think now the region of Unterengstringen is waking up. So I would like to thank all the neighbors in Unterengstringen who are calling the police station, because that's what you have to do. And then please also watch the video I'm going to upload later today about how this is still going on. And I want to say that when we first met with these crimes, it seems so overwhelming. But when we whittle it down to it, all of this is done by key individuals who have a name, who have a home, who themselves have children in school, okay? And we have got leverage over them. We can go to them and say, what the hell are you doing? And that will be the next step, That will be the next step, because I am outraged that for 2.5 years, and after the neighborhood campaign, my 2 adjacent neighbors and this balcony to the south with the extra shielding behind the hedge, they continue to shoot at me. And there are audible hits just hitting the outside of my bunker nonstop. Now, the other thing I'm outraged by explains why the police does nothing. Because when I went to Unterengstringen police station, what I saw on the till were flyers, and it's these, and it says suspicion, if you have a suspicion, call the emergency line, and it says together against burglars, but it has the all-seeing eye. It has the mafia symbol from the police station. A police should know that this is a recognition symbol of the mafia, especially in the country where the mafia was founded, just between Zurich and Bern, okay? So this is the mafia. So why does the police say, oh, let's work together against burglars? Because they're saying one thing and they're denying it in the same letter. This is Illuminati cartel signaling. What it actually says is, fuck you. We're burgling your house and there's nothing you can do about it, because we're the police. You would have to go to us, and we don't give a damn, because we're the ones burgling your house and we're in on it, and we're probably making a lot of money. of these weapons contracts and so on.
Yeah, this is like the whole see something, say something. You know, as you know, I drove up to Vermont the last weekend, and on the way, I think when we re-entered New Hampshire, I picked up a few flyers. Oh no, actually, we were leaving Vermont, and so this was one of the welcome posts for Vermont, and I picked up a few brochures, and one of them was a see something, say something from the local DHS or Fusion Center. And I think the intention over here is to give everybody the impression that we have to continuously maintain the stance of vigilance, you know, because there are going to be bad guys in the neighborhoods, etc. But I think it's high time for everybody to start challenging that BS, because it's nothing but BS. As everybody knows, you know, people in our neighborhoods, in this particular neighborhood, I've talked frequently about cars zooming up and down and how I've done this FOIA request to the Fusion Center. The Fusion Center, by the way, in Massachusetts is headed by the Massachusetts State Police. So the chief of police wrote back to me, you know, when I asked about something else, not about these cars zooming up and down. He wrote back to me about, public safety. He said he couldn't give me any information when I asked about the weapons that are being used, the non-lethal weapons, the less lethal weapons. You know, the same weapons that James Giordano is now openly speaking about, those weapons. So I'd asked about what surveillance tech is being used in Massachusetts, and can you give me a list? And he said, well, in the interest of public safety, I can't give you any lists. So that's what he said to me, right? So I'm a human rights advocate. I'm asking in the interest of public safety, and this is the nonsense I get from the chief of police. And I asked him why he was writing back to me, by the way. I said, why are you writing back to me? I was writing to the Fusion Center. And he wrote back saying, that's because I head the Fusion Center.
I am the Fusion Center. It fuses on my desk. The center fuses on my desk.
The center is on my desk, and the center is also zooming up and down my street. So when I put in these other FOIA requests about, you know, this pattern of cars coming into my neighborhood in shifts, and zooming around the block and leaving in one direction and then being replenished in another direction, constant zooming, incredible. This is invasion of the neighborhood, you know? So I think everybody is well within their rights to question the Fusion Center about what the heck is going on. And nothing. That fell into a total vacuum, and I got no responsive documents. So obviously the Fusion Center is participating and engaging in this activity.
They are running it. I think
they're running it.
You know, that we need to all wake up to is when I get this, I know that the police is running the burglaries I should say, housebreaking, because they haven't burgled, they haven't stolen. Well, they have stolen stuff of value and then returned it when I complained publicly. But this means we're the mafia. We are running it. And one of the things I would like to say is that the way our intelligence agencies are set up and the police are set up, it is a structure, a system structure that is not just not resilient against deep capture. It invites it because of all the power and the potential for exploitation of other people that is actually, encoded in that office. So if you're a criminal and you're looking for, a business plan and how to really exploit those people who are not members of your crime cartel, you would move into the police, you would move into the secret services, use the compartmentalization and secrecy. And before long, we have this situation where we've got this war criminal that we've just seen, Giordano, talk about national security. I'm sorry, for the American people, what national security would be shooting him in the head. That would be a step up. And then shooting all the other researchers in the head so they stop developing this stuff. Because what's going on is that these guys, where is the war? If we didn't have them, there would be no war, because the rest of us, we're, going to our jobs, we're looking after children, we're making dinner, and we're trying to keep families together. So where the hell is the war from China all the way?
There is no war. And ask yourself also, why are people like us being surveilled? Why are we being surveilled? Why are we being surveilled nonstop, 24/7? So let me give you one little bit of info. We were driving up, and all the way driving up from Massachusetts through New Hampshire into Vermont, beautiful countryside, and it's mountainside. It's on a normal day there wouldn't be any traffic, but of course we have a target in the car, so there's traffic. There's traffic zooming on the left, there's traffic zooming on the right, following in front, following at an angle, sticking themselves in at a diagonal, etc., and hitting. So, so here's how I was hit. So there's something, I think those of you who are targets, those of you with experiences, and those of you who are aware that we are being nanoteched will know that nanobiosensors apparently are being accessed in our fingertips. in the tips of our tongue, on our noses, on different parts of the body, you know. And of course, there are RFID chips. If you've been covertly implanted, you will feel that pressure of frequency emission and transmission hitting those chips. And, you know, I can certainly attest to that. But the other way in which they hit is also, so as they are driving, they're testing their sensor technology. They are testing their sensor, what is the word, tracking technology. They're testing it as they're driving by. They're also hitting you from cell towers as you drive by. I noticed that particularly as we approached towers, I would feel intense wave of heat, you know, which kind of started as we crossed them. Literally, I was hit in the face throughout as I was driving and as we were staying at this hotel in Vermont, in Burlington, Vermont, by the way. And this is the other thing. Beautiful tourist location on Lake Champlain, Vermont, Burlington, Vermont. It's a university city, right? University town. Tons of young kids around there, supposedly college professors, etc. Well, the same old story, the stalking story, the color coding, the psyops, the MISO, all of this nonsense is going on even in Burlington, Vermont. Going on in New Hampshire, going on in Vermont. As we were coming back, we were sitting at a Pinheiro, young couple, sitting there with their cell phones busily tracking, pointing, looking at each other, grinning. You know, so this is what's happened. We've got a spy society going on. Half our society, probably 3/4, probably 95%, has been taken over by these fusion centers and intel agencies, giving people to understand that they are doing a great good for the country, right? Because they're tracking these horrific, dangerous people, and they're tracking them on their cell phones constantly, and they're directing hits, so on and so forth. And it's absolutely horrifying. You see these young kids engaging in it. You know, they're teaching young kids, teenagers, college students to engage in this BS behavior. So I experienced all of that, you know, going, coming there while I was there, etc. However, I did have a beautiful holiday. I did enjoy the lake. We took some hikes and walks, and, you know, I ignored all this nonsense and I focused on the beauty of nature. So I can't say I'm well rested. I was sleep deprived at the hotel, and I could see from where I could see trucks parked across, you know, with interstate across them, and guys in neon standing out there. You know, these guys act as if this is the mafia, by the way. This is the crime cartel. They're working through the DHS. How else could they be interstate? You know, they're working through the DHS and the FBI, but they are the mafia, and they are hitting people who are speaking out and engaged, active, awake, concerned citizens in the population. That's who they're hitting. You're muted, Catherine.
Actually, the criminal and traitor Michael Hayden, who has been exposed several times by, you know, high-level whistleblowers as exactly that, as a criminal and traitor. So this criminal, Michael Hayden, publicly stated that the NSA and the CIA are not interested in terrorists. They are interested in interesting people. And what that means in plain English is that these old perverts want to have, you know, young women, typically, I think your daughters in school, and also young boys, you know, in primary school, to perv at. That's interesting for them. They really dislike intelligent women, and they like to mutilate them to death really slowly. And we've got lots of deaths exactly in that category. So they find interesting women they can mutilate, children they can rape, people they can perv on, and they really love killing. So if you've got an elderly parent, they're interested in your elderly parent because they want to have to kill, and, you know, they need to train their kiddies how to kill, so they will use your elderly parents. So this is what Michael Hayden actually said when we understand and put this whole picture together. But it's true what you're saying. You know, the DHS is the mafia. And what we have is not a spy society, we have a criminal society. Just like East Germany was a criminal society, and the Stasi was a criminal organization run by the Masons, just like the Nazis were run by the Masons, as the Vatican, the Masons are the Vatican front, a Vatican front for Vatican intelligence.
And I just wanted to, I'm sharing my screen again, as you can see, and I just wanted to show you this one slide as you were speaking, Catherine, because what Giordano talked about here in this video again, about weaponizable neuroscience and tech. If you look at 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 is assess, predict, and control what people are thinking, what people are feeling, and their behaviors. 2 is supposedly mitigate aggression and foster mitigate aggression. Okay, so the military likes to get away with that they're mitigating aggression. Foster cognitions, emotions, and behaviors of affiliation or passivity. Basically, they want to dumb you down and retard your children. And 3, this is very, very important because they're doing this already. They're doing this to those interesting individuals, which is us. Incur burdens of morbidity, disability, or suffering, and in this way neutralize potential opponents. Or 4, induce mortality. Yeah. So he's coming right out and saying, yes, they're going to make you sick. They're going to make you they're going to make you suffer, and they're going to make you dead. Exactly. And this is their methodology of neutralizing potential opponents.
Yeah. And in this particular slide, and I'm so glad he put his mug on this video, because what I hope the American people wake up to, and you have to realize that this satellite system to brain mutilate you, if you just think about, going up against the crime cartel, is already in place. So at some point, we need to start thinking about how to kill these people. I advocate going into court and getting a court order for the permission, the license to kill these people. People like Gina Haspel and people like this guy need to be lawfully killed. They need to be exterminated from the surface of the earth because they're psychopathic degenerates. There's an ongoing war that only exists in their head. And the truth is, they are brain damaged individuals, they are degenerates, and the only thing that they know is how to reproduce and how to kill. That's the only thing that these people are capable of.
Catherine, you should remember we're talking about whole bodies of people, however. Gina Haspel, James Giordano, they are sort of the tip of the iceberg. They're just 2 little figureheads. There's a whole bunch of them. This is where the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars are going in. They're going in to create this kind of thinking, this kind of mentality. Where, and of course, to create this science and technology, which is extremely destructive to humanity, to all of human society. So this is huge amounts of money is being poured into this enterprise. Huge numbers of people are being supported by this enterprise. So imagine a whole group of military researchers, neuroscientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of them working within the military intelligence paradigm to take over the human brain. So literally this is we're seeing the fruition of that long arc of projection all the way from, Tavistock, Delgado, etc., all the way Ewan Cameron, Sidney Gottlieb, all of the MKUltra experiments, all the way to now, to complete takeover of the human brain. So they have had time and huge amounts of money. Well, they manufacture money right out of thin air. That's what these banks do. So they've had a lot of time and money to establish, to entrench these sciences. And now they're at a point of extreme sophistication, but they have this ability. So now they're at the point of beginning to expose and show a little bit of what they are doing and present it in such ways that they imagine that they're garnering consent from the people watching it. So, really, we are at a point in history, I think, where people need to wake up. Humans, the normal, average, everyday human being needs to wake up. Not the people in the military and intelligence who are a part of this. They are a part of this. They are part of this cartel that's engaging in this. The rest of humanity needs to wake up, understand what's being done, what's down the pike, what's not just down the pike, it's actually right here. It's being done already, right? The stuff is being operated and used on people, this kind of tech. So they are indeed doing this. So the question that needs to be asked is, well, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to sit back and let them do this?
Exactly, absolutely. And I think when we are putting all these puzzle pieces together, we have to remind ourselves that what he said about, inducing suffering and inducing, morbidity and all this sort of stuff, what he's talking about is also lucrative things like inducing Alzheimer's by just frying the brain of your parents, you know, and also this entire story about Creutzfeldt-Jakobs, you know, the mad cow disease, and suddenly there were these massive holes in the brain, and then we were led to believe that this is from proteins. I'm sorry, but the laws of physics say that you can't really have a protein, you know, actually make massive mass disappear, puff into thin air. But you can have microwaves and then fry a brain. You can do that very well, actually. So for me, the mad cow disease was actually testing electromagnetic weapons on the cows and leaving the farmers with the damage when the cows got brain mutilated, and then making up a fake disease, like what was it called? Fibromyalgia, whatever the hell.
Fibromyalgia.
Exactly. I think these are all fake. They are entirely fake, made up pseudo diseases to cover up the systematic mutilation with these directed energy weapons, because they do not make any flipping sense. And then there's many other details that you can work out.
Yeah, and as you said, they're creating patients. You know, they create disorders, they create symptoms of horrific diseases, they name new diseases, and then they've got new patients for the pharma industry, for the medical industry, the surgical industry, you know. Exactly. So unfortunately, we're also talking about very unethical doctors who are involved in this kind of thing. We know the entire pharmaceutical industry is filled with unethical people. Yeah. So yeah, so that's there too. But
I think, you know, now, because the situation is so desperate, and with desperate I mean that I had to finish the affidavit template, I had to go to McDonald's because the machine gunning into my study, into my flat, from 2 neighbors whom I know and another one was so intense I had to flee. And as I'm sitting here, I can exactly what he talks about, the targeted brain mutilation. I can hear and I can feel it, because there's one side of my metal shed I haven't insulated, and I keep being shot in the head. So this is real, people. But one of the things I want to say is that in all of this, there are actual key individuals doing it. It's not just anybody. We know that Lockheed Martin is running the gang stalking in 47 out of 50 states at least. So Lockheed Martin and the CEO of Lockheed is personally responsible.
Yes, we have to hold the CEOs responsible. We have to hold the figureheads and all of these companies responsible.
But more than that,
you know, what the Empower movement is doing, but slamming notices of liability on people, that's what we have to look into.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a very brilliant thing, because also what the Empower movement does is it says if you're being damaged, or you know your body is being used or somehow harmed, and you can't make them stop, you're totally within your right to say, okay, you're using me, there's nothing I can do about it, but you can't have me for free. Here's my fee schedule, and then have £2 million per day of being used for you know.
Absolutely, I think we could very quickly bankrupt these companies.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we have to do. And then it's about the enforcement side of it, and that's where it starts to get interesting, because you can get a court order, but how do you make them stop if you have satellite systems and so on? And that's exactly the moment that no one likes to talk about it, but we need to talk about it at some point, because that's the moment when we have to call the military in, and we have to say to the military, you need to kill these people. Because we already heard from Midge Mattis that her former partner or husband or whatever runs a telecommunication company, Don, what's his name, or something Don?
I don't know his name.
Exactly, but we have to look up the interview with Midge Mattis. But he's got a telecommunication company. He's a complete psychopath. And he went through all the satanic rituals. He's got a forked tongue because he had it snipped so that he can look even more like a snake. Okay? And this totally wacko, crazy psychopath is running the telecommunication system that is going to kill you and your children. So the question is, what do we do? If you get a court order and he's so messed in the head, he's got his tongue forked, right? He might be a bit too psychopathic to stop. So that's the moment when we have to say, hang on a second, it's either court order, it's death if they don't comply. And we have to start getting all these lists and returning to the affidavit template. At the very end, there's a list of perpetrators, and it's super important because we need to publish the perpetrators. And you have
yeah, I think ultimately the people who do occupy public positions, you know, are liable, right? They are liable.
Yes, but the question is, how do you enforce it? And the real problem is, for example, take my case. I have two neighbors either side who are massively involved. They are being paid to put up weapons, and their weapons are being steered automatically by AI, by an integrated system, probably to do with Lockheed Martin or an equivalent weapons company. Now, they did not stop for 2.5 years because they're getting rich off my murder. Now, how do we make them stop? How do we make Swiss Intel stop or the FBI stop? We have to name individuals, but we have to name the CEOs, the heads of the FBI, but we have to name everybody, the gang stalkers, your neighbors, because if we only name the head of the FBI, they will replace the head of the FBI. And in the meantime, these people will continue mutilating you because there's no incentive for them to stop.
Yes, I think every neighbor that you have witnessed being involved needs to be named.
Yes, absolutely, with the actual statement of what makes you think this person is involved. So I just wanted to say, for those people who are interested in the affidavit, there is a section at the end for perpetrators, and you can name perpetrators publicly or you can name them privately, and then it only goes to the JIT. But this is exactly what we need to do. We need to start identifying them. And we are very, very close to a civil war, because as people wake up and realize they have been mutilated in a premeditated fashion, and their children have been mutilated at school by the likes of James Giordano and the likes of Gina Haspel, that's the moment when we're teetering on a civil war, because we have these swarms of organized criminals who already have an interconnected mobile phone system. They already have the vans with the weapons. Here in Unterengstringen, what do we do in Unterengstringen to make these people stop? At some point, the Swiss population has to stop these vans and has to search the vans themselves for these electromagnetic weapons, because Mr. Schoch and his friends have not been doing it for 2.5 years.
Well, they're also in the houses, you know. Over here in the US, they use, I think we should start calling them crack fusion houses. They used to be crack houses, right? And now they've got fusion houses. But they've just got these, you know, Khazarian mafia boys sitting out here. Mafia boys and proxies, boys and minions. So
it's fused crack houses. It's also crack den, and it's a fusion center. So it's a fused crack house, you know.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, you see them go in and out, you know, total transient population in every little corner of the block, quite a few houses. So, and you know that the weaponry is inside there. And they're also using, you know, they're using the infrastructure, the power utility grid and the infrastructure. So if you've got power lines coming in from, you know, across the street, you've got, I think there are indeed surreptitious lines that are being brought into people's houses, you know, so that then they use the wiring in the house to create a giant electromagnet, probably, and then, you know, sort of in some way exacerbate what they are doing.
Actually, you know, an already known and established technology of doing that is the following. You already can buy these Wi-Fi or WLAN amplifiers, which is just something that you stick into the socket, and then your Wi-Fi signal is traveling over the power lines. Okay.
Oh, right, they do that. Yeah.
But what that means is that suddenly your entire house, everywhere where there's a power line, will start acting as a WLAN unit, as a Wi-Fi router. Okay. So if you have body implants, and we already have the scientific paper that says the communication protocol for these body area networks, it's exactly the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all that sort of stuff. So if you have a body area network that can communicate over the Wi-Fi frequencies, all they need to do is put one of these little, you know, power line amplifiers into the walls of your house when you don't notice, and your body chips can be triggered, not just by your Wi-Fi router, which you can switch off or remove, but anywhere where there's a power socket. And then there's nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's all sorts of little tricks, I think, and some people have indeed found all sorts of strange cables buried just outside their house and things like that. So, you know, and there's induction as well, right? So they can do so many things these days in terms of electrifying or electromagnetizing your environs to make it dangerous for use. And unfortunately, that kind of thing is going on. So as you say, not just should the cars be stopped, you know, these houses should be opened. And somebody with this kind of awareness, a radio frequency engineer or an electrical engineer, or both of them working in tandem, should be doing this kind of investigative work in order to free our communities again. So there's a lot that needs to be done. I've got planes flying over here nonstop. And we have to wrap this up. So if there's any last things we need to tell people, do watch that video,
Millicent, exactly. Sorry, yes, do watch the video. And sorry, we forgot to mention what Millicent wanted to say.
Oh.
She said, I'm still silenced, but please tell them about thought injection, neurolinguistic programming, and subliminal messaging that is being used to create a false illusion that we are thinking criminal thoughts when it's really NASA / Navy developed thought injection. Now, what Millicent is talking about is already one step ahead, because she knows that we are being brain monitored, and what these criminal psychopathic degenerates and the police are trying to do is they want to say, oh, we want to find out if she's thinking criminal thoughts. But remember that they are the crime cartel. So what that means in plain English is they want to already know if you're even thinking about going up to the, up against the crime cartel, so that they can give you a heart attack, So this is what it's about. But Millicent says that on paper, at least, they are saying we are monitoring these people to find out if they're thinking criminal thoughts. And she's saying, hang on, your criminal thoughts, should there ever be any, can be externally injected. So you're just a normal person going about your business, and suddenly, through synthetic telepathy and through the head chips that you don't even know you have, you can be made to think any sort of thoughts, even criminal thoughts, and then you're thinking the criminal thoughts, and they're reading them out, and they say, aha!
Well, both Millicent and Omni have reported, and actually many others that I've spoken to have reported this kind of pumping in of horrific images into their heads, and the backs of their retinas, etc. These are electronic or synthetic images that are injected into their brains, and some of these are pornographic images, some of these are pedophilic and pedosadist images. So when they do this kind of pumping in of these horrific images, the intention, and Omni has spoken about this quite succinctly. I think he's written about it on many of his websites as well. The intention is entrapment, because remember, this is what the FBI thrives on. So they are indeed, as Giordano stands witness to, they are indeed engaging in neurosurveillance, neuromonitoring, and neuropolicing. Calling it neurocrime. But what they're also engaged in is essentially neuroentrapment. So one agency possibly pumps in the images, and the other agency harvests the images, or one compartment in an agency, pumps in, and the other compartment harvests or examines, does the neuroimaging to find out what the images are. I mean, they find these images, they say, oh my goodness, this person is a pedophile, or a pedosadist, or a pornographer, or whatever. And, therefore we have to but this goes down in their record, and this explains why, this justifies what we are doing. We are trying to save humanity. We are trying to save society. We are so virtuous, and we are keeping people from this horrific person who's all possibly a serial killer or a pedophile, or whatever. So that's exactly what they're doing. And I think that is what Millicent is pointing to, and what Omnia is pointing to, that they're able to do this. And it's very much, if you look at it from the point of view of what the FBI and CIA are already doing, it's sort of like the whole war on terror, right? You've got the war on terror, and then you've got the Terrorism Creation Center, right? And that's ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whatever else, species of group they wish to create and put out there as the next best horrific terror operation. And then you come up with, our children are becoming radicalized and becoming extremists, our right-wingers and left-wingers, they want to go and fight in Syria, and they want to go fight in, wherever. And this extremist thing is huge. So we've got to have the Countering Violent Extremism program. And we've got to watch these kids, and we've got to monitor them from the time they're, it's 5 years old, right through their teenage years. And this, we're doing this great service to society. So this is how they're doing it. This is exactly how they're doing it. And they're doing it now at the neural level as well. So that's sort of what Millicent's talking about, thought injection. And then there's subliminal messaging and neurolinguistic programming as well, which I think is a vast subject, right? NLP.
Absolutely. And a lot of the NLP is being done through ear implants that you don't even know that you have them, and they are repeating stuff, and eventually it sounds like your own idea or your own thoughts, but actually you're hearing it, but it's so quiet, only your brain can decipher it, and you're not hearing it. So you can be brainwashed into using certain vocabulary and things like that. But I'm absolutely sorry about this, because I basically had to put up shielding because the attacks were getting ever more serious. But I'm not just making this as a show. This is how I have to work all throughout. Occasionally, I just like Ramola, who has.
Well, I was going to say that's when I sit on the couch, I have one of these big thingies, slammed right up against me, because if not, I'm hit right in the side of my head, and in the heart. So I just sit like that. I don't have a nice metal ship, though I need one.
Not enough. This is basically it. It's this exotic physics is punching through a lot of things, and the fact that it's punching through proves automatically that it's military technology and the military is involved. So this is the Swiss military and Swiss Secret Services exterminating the Swiss population. And I think the fact that people are calling the police station, just as I expected, already means that Swiss people are already being genocided here in Unterengstringen. I knew that was the case because they have to kill, I think 30% of the Swiss people is the target. This is according to the private intelligence service, Deagle.com. That seems to be pretty spot on, and they seem to update their genocide numbers on I think not quite weekly, but on a monthly basis. And unfortunately, this is the reality. But one of the things, and my last sentence, is that what is happening right now, there are people to blame, and they are less than 500 meters away from me. The person to blame for this right now is the next door lady who put up this weapon, which is why I can block it by just having the shielding panel at this angle. So I know it's her. I can also sometimes hear impact sounds on the other side. But there are other people. So she can be identified. Mr. Schoch and Wendelin Koch, the two police officers in Unterengstringen, they are personally responsible. And then, of course, Jean-Philippe Godin, the new head of Swiss Intel, who's a military man, he is responsible for running this program, and it was Markus Seiler before him. They are paying the gang stalkers. They are running this. And what we have to do now is that we have to collect these lists of names, and we have to put these people into jail, and we have to get the entire list of gang stalkers out of them, because the gang stalkers have been given weapons and they have been trained in the use of these weapons, and they will turn on the non-criminal part of the population at the smallest indication. So we need those lists. We need the list of criminals.
They've already turned. I mean, think about it. Those who are being targeted today are the non-criminal portion of the population. It's not terrorists who are being hit. Everybody who's being targeted is either an activist, a concerned citizen who speaks out, a civic-minded citizen, or just some other person who's spoken out, a whistleblower, somebody who's spoken out against corruption in whatever sphere of influence their work takes them. So that's unfortunately what's going on. We are living in a very upside-down, topsy-turvy kind of society. And, so in any case, what I would suggest is people please watch that video to understand the importance of this time period that we're living in currently, because this person, Mr. James Giordano, Mr. or Doctor, is actually giving us a lot of disclosure about the incredible range of neuroweapons that are being used today on people. And he does indeed disclose that they are being used. He does not use the word target, and well, he actually does use the word target, but he doesn't talk about targeted individuals per se. But I think we can read between the lines. That video is definitely going to make a lot of people really angry, because it actually spells out such horrors. But do watch that video. Also, please look at Catherine's letter, and please employ and deploy that particular letter in your own neighborhoods, wherever you are in the world, because literally it's informing the neighbors that when somebody is being hit in the neighborhood, so are they, and so are their children. So that's something to wake people up to, about the horrors of radiation being directed at them as well. And then the affidavit, right? So the affidavit is all ready. It's on your website and people can download it.
No, not yet. What's up on the website is the final proofreading draft.
Oh, okay.
Now the proofreading is completed. The affidavit template will be released, if I'm quick, tonight at midnight. That's my goal. And then tomorrow.
So sometime this week.
By the time people get up, it should be there.
Wow, that's pretty fantastic. All right. So Okay, so time to celebrate. We're getting the affidavit.
Absolutely. We're fighting back now. Finally.
Yeah, brilliant. Wonderful. So I guess at this point, we'll just thank everyone for watching and hang in there. We will see you next week. Thank you very much. And I will stop the live stream. So bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Right. But they really, you know, your health is not a concern here. I do want you to know. They don't give a rat's ass about your health. I'm sure you know that. In fact, Big Pharma, their buddy, is just going to make a hell of a lot of money. All of these large corporations are all going to make a massive profit off of all of the downside of the 5G and whatever possible upside there could be, which I don't see. But anyway, I want to remind my Christians out there, okay guys, Wi-Fi is part of 5G. I want to remind you it is Satan's tool, and how awesome it would be if on Christmas Eve, my dear